Hey there, and welcome to Crime for Sleep. I know you're having trouble falling asleep, so let me keep you company with true crime stories from around the world. Before we dive in, I'm curious, where did you first hear this one? If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now get comfortable, and let's get into tonight's case. Crime 1. I'd lived in the building long enough to know the unit across from mine had always been empty. No lights, no furniture deliveries, no movement. Then without warning, I started hearing noises, soft shuffling, the creak of old floorboards, a faucet turning on and off. I asked the landlord if someone moved in. He said no. I pressed him. He got defensive. That night, I slid a folded note under the door. It came back 5 minutes later with new handwriting. I've been here longer than you think, and I know what you did. The front door was still locked. My hands trembled as I held that piece of paper. The handwriting was deliberate, measured, nothing like the hurried scrawl of someone playing a prank. I studied every curve of each letter, searching for familiarity. The ink was fresh, blue ballpoint pressed deep into the paper. Someone had taken their time with this message. I pressed my ear to the wall that separated my bedroom from the empty unit. Silence, not the comfortable quiet of vacancy, but the heavy stillness of held breath, the kind of silence that watches back. The next morning, I cornered the building super in the lobby. He was sorting mail with the methodical precision of someone avoiding eye contact. When I mentioned the apartment, his shoulders tensed. Been empty for months, he muttered, not looking up from the envelopes. Landlord's been trying to rent it out. Then who's been using the water? His hands paused. What water? The pipes, I hear them running through the wall. Someone's turning on faucets over there. He finally looked at me then, and something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe, or fear. Old buildings make noise, pipes settle, you know how it is. But I knew the difference between settling pipes and deliberate movement. I'd been listening to this building's rhythms for 2 years. Every groan, every creak, every whisper of wind through loose window frames. This was different. This was human. That afternoon, I walked the perimeter of the building, counting windows. My apartment had 2 facing the courtyard. The empty unit should have had the same. But when I stood in the courtyard and looked up, I saw something that made my stomach turn. The windows weren't just dark, they were covered from the inside, not with curtains or blinds, but with what looked like newspaper or cardboard taped carefully around the edges. Someone was hiding in there. I started keeping a journal of the sounds. The shuffling usually began around midnight, always the same pattern, footsteps from the far end of the unit moving toward the shared wall, then stopping. Sometimes I'd hear what sounded like furniture being dragged across the floor. Once I could have sworn I heard typing, the steady rhythm of fingers on keys. The smell started a week later. It seeped under my door like a living thing, sweet and cloying with an undertone that made me gag. I'd smelled it before, but couldn't place where. It clung to my clothes, followed me to work, invaded my dreams. I tried talking to other tenants. The woman upstairs claimed she'd never heard anything unusual. The college student downstairs just shrugged and said old buildings were weird, but their eyes said something different. They knew. They were all pretending not to know. That's when I remembered the news story from last spring. A missing person case that had dominated local headlines for weeks before quietly disappearing from the papers. Someone had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only questions and an apartment full of unpaid bills. The details were fuzzy in my memory, but I remembered the photo, a face that seemed familiar, though I couldn't place where I'd seen it. I spent hours searching online archives, piecing together fragments of articles. The missing person had lived in this neighborhood, had worked at the coffee shop where I bought my morning cup, had been seen arguing with someone outside this very building the night they disappeared. The police had investigated, of course. They'd interviewed neighbors, searched the building, found nothing. The case went cold. The family stopped giving interviews. The story faded. But what if it hadn't really ended? I started watching the apartment door more carefully. The lock was old, the kind that could be picked by someone with patience and the right tools. The metal showed tiny scratches around the keyhole, fresh ones that hadn't been there when I first moved in. Late one night I heard something that made my blood freeze. A voice, muffled by the wall but unmistakably human. It was singing, a slow, tuneless melody that seemed to go on forever. I pressed my ear to the wall and tried to make out the words, but they dissolved into whispers before I could understand them. The singing stopped abruptly. Then came 3 deliberate knocks on the shared wall. I jerked away from the plaster, heart hammering. The knocks came again, 3 short raps directly behind where my head had been. They knew I was listening. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my living room, staring at the door, waiting for another note to appear. But nothing came. Just the sound of my own breathing and the occasional creak of old wood settling in the darkness. Morning brought a new realization. The smell was stronger near my bathroom, the one that shared plumbing with the empty unit. When I ran the water, I could hear pipes responding on the other side of the wall. If someone was living over there, they were using my water line. I called the water company. According to their records, the empty apartment had been shut off for months. No service, no bills, no usage. But my water bill had nearly doubled since the noises started. Someone was stealing my water, someone who wasn't supposed to exist. I contacted the landlord directly, bypassing the building super. His secretary said he was out of town indefinitely. No forwarding information, no return date, just gone, like everyone else connected to this place seemed to disappear when I asked the right questions. That's when I found the maintenance logs in the basement storage room. Yellowed pages tucked behind the water heater, documenting every repair and inspection for the past 5 years. The empty apartment appeared regularly in the entries. Broken window lock, leaking faucet, electrical problems, work orders dated long after the unit was supposedly vacant. The most recent entry was from last month, written in the same careful handwriting as the note that had been slipped under my door. Occupant complaint about noise from adjacent unit. Recommend soundproofing. My hands shook as I photographed the page. Someone had been living in that apartment all along. Someone the landlord knew about. Someone who had been watching me, listening to me, documenting my daily routines. Someone who knew what I did. But what had I done? I'd moved here seeking anonymity, trying to start fresh after the incident that had driven me from my previous life. The thing I'd never reported, never spoken about, never allowed myself to fully remember. The reason I'd changed my name, my job, my entire existence. I thought I'd escaped. I thought no one would ever find me. But they had. They'd been living across the hall, watching and waiting. And now they wanted me to remember what I'd spent 2 years trying to forget. The note under my door that night was longer. The truth doesn't disappear just because you run from it. Some debts follow you everywhere. Some witnesses never stop watching. I crumpled the paper, but the words had already burned themselves into my memory. This wasn't a stranger playing games. This was someone who knew exactly who I was and what I'd done. Or what they thought I'd done. The distinction was becoming harder to maintain as my carefully constructed new life began to crumble. Because deep down in the part of my mind I'd locked away, I knew they were right. I did know what I'd done, and I'd been running from it ever since. The question wasn't whether someone was living in the empty apartment. The question was whether they were there for justice or revenge, and whether I deserved either one. Crime 2, I found it on the bus seat, wedged between cushions, an old model phone with no lock screen. I thought maybe I could return it. I opened the gallery. There were hundreds of photos, all taken in the dark. Grainy shots of hallways, windows, porches. And then I saw mine, my door, my kitchen, my bedroom, me sleeping, every angle, every night. I dropped the phone, ran home, and locked everything. But the next morning, the phone was on my pillow, and the newest photo, me screaming mid-run. The metallic taste in my mouth wouldn't go away. I sat on my couch, staring at that cursed device, my hands trembling as I scrolled through what felt like months of surveillance. The photos were time-stamped, but I couldn't focus on the numbers. My mind kept returning to one image, me, face down on my pillow, completely vulnerable, taken from what must have been my bedroom window. I called the police first. The officer who answered sounded bored, mechanical. Another paranoid citizen, probably. He took my information, told me someone would be in touch. No urgency, no concern, just protocol. I hung up feeling more isolated than before. The smell of coffee from my kitchen seemed wrong now, tainted. Everything in my apartment felt contaminated by those images. I'd lived here for over 2 years, thinking I was safe, thinking my routine was mine alone. The photos showed otherwise. Someone had been watching me brush my teeth, watching me eat dinner alone, watching me change clothes. I decided to examine the phone more carefully. Beyond the gallery, there were text messages, conversations with someone whose name appeared only as a series of numbers. The messages were cryptic, discussing the subject and collection complete. My stomach churned as I realized I was the subject. The most recent conversation made my blood freeze. Phase 2 initiated. Subject aware. Proceed with interior access. Interior access. Someone had been inside my home. I started searching every corner of my apartment, behind picture frames, inside lamp shades, under furniture. The paranoia felt justified now. In my bedroom closet, tucked behind winter coats I hadn't touched in months, I found a small hole drilled through the wall, fresh plaster dust on the floor below it. The hole was perfectly positioned to view my bed from an angle that matched several photos on the phone. Someone in the adjacent apartment had been watching me sleep for months. My neighbor, the quiet one who always nodded politely when we passed in the hallway. I pressed my ear against the wall, silence, but then faintly the sound of movement, footsteps. Someone was there right now, probably watching through that hole. My hands shook as I dialed my neighbor's number, which I'd gotten from the building directory months ago during a package mix-up. It rang once, twice. Then I heard it, the ringtone, muffled but audible through the wall. The same melody I'd been hearing faintly for weeks, always at odd hours, always brief. The call went to voicemail, a voice I recognized, soft, familiar. The same voice that had said good morning to me countless times, the same voice that had offered to water my plants when I went out of town. I hung up and immediately started packing. Whatever was happening, whoever was doing this, I couldn't stay. As I threw clothes into a suitcase, I noticed something that made me stop cold. One of my kitchen knives was missing from the block, the largest one. The realization hit me like ice water. The person watching me hadn't just been collecting photos. They'd been inside my apartment multiple times. They had a key, or they'd learned how to pick my lock. they'd been preparing for something more than surveillance. I grabbed the phone and scrolled to the very last photo in the gallery. It was taken just hours ago while I was at work, my apartment, but with subtle changes. A chair moved slightly, a book placed differently on my nightstand, and on my kitchen counter, exactly where the missing knife had been, a single white envelope. I hadn't seen any envelope when I'd come home. My heart pounding, I walked slowly to the kitchen. There it was, pristine white against the dark countertop. My name written in careful block letters across the front. Inside, a single sheet of paper with a message that made my vision blur. Thank you for finding my phone. I've been waiting for you to discover what I've been doing. Now we can move to the next phase. You've seen how easily I can watch you, how easily I can enter your space. You belong to me now. Don't involve the police again. Don't try to move. I know where you work, where your family lives, where you go on weekends. We're connected now. Check the phone tonight. There will be new instructions. The paper fell from my hands. I looked around my apartment with new eyes, seeing it as this person saw it. A stage, a controlled environment where I'd been performing my life unknowingly for months. I tried calling the police again, but the line was busy, then busy again. On the third attempt, I got through to the same board officer. He promised to send someone over, but couldn't say when. Budget cuts, he explained, staff shortages. I couldn't wait. I called a locksmith, then my sister, then started researching security systems online. But with each action, I felt more trapped rather than safer. This person had been planning for months. They knew my patterns, my vulnerabilities, my connections. As darkness fell, the phone buzzed with a new message. Not a text, but a photo notification. A new image had been added to the gallery. It was my living room, taken from inside my apartment, showing me sitting on my couch with the phone in my hands. The timestamp showed it had been taken moments before. Someone was inside my apartment right now, watching me discover their latest message. I looked up from the screen, scanning every shadow, every corner. The smell of unfamiliar cologne hung faintly in the air, a scent I'd been noticing for weeks but had attributed to neighbors or building maintenance. The floorboard behind me creaked. I turned around slowly but saw nothing. Just my apartment looking exactly as it always had, except now I knew it was never really mine. It had been someone else's surveillance project, someone else's collection, someone else's preparation for something I couldn't yet understand. The phone buzzed again, another photo. This one showed me from behind, sitting on my couch, turning to look over my shoulder, taken seconds ago. I stood up carefully, quietly, and walked toward my bedroom. If someone was in here with me, if they were taking photos in real time, then everything I discovered was just the beginning. The months of surveillance, the break-ins, the missing knife, the hole in the wall, it had all been preparation for this moment. But as I reached my bedroom doorway, I noticed something that stopped me cold. On my dresser, next to my jewelry box, sat a second phone, identical to the one I'd found on the bus, and next to it, a note in the same careful handwriting. You're learning quickly, but you still don't understand. Check the gallery on this phone, see what I've collected about the others. My hands trembling, I picked up the second device. The gallery contained hundreds more photos, different apartments, different people, all taken from hidden vantage points, all showing the same pattern of surveillance, the same intimate invasion of privacy. I wasn't the first, I was just the latest. And somewhere in my apartment, in the shadows I couldn't see, the person who had turned my life into their collection was still watching, still documenting, still preparing for whatever came next in their carefully planned sequence of events. The realization that struck me then was perhaps the most terrifying of all. I had never found that phone by accident. It had been placed there for me to find at exactly the right moment by someone who knew my route, my schedule, my bus stop. Everything I thought I had discovered had been deliberately revealed to me. And I still had no idea why. Crime 3, they gave me the wrong number. I was supposed to clean out Unit 36. I got keys for Unit 63. It was dim, dusty, and freezing cold. Inside were sealed boxes labeled "Do Not Open." I opened one. It was full of clothes, tiny ones, and shoes, and locks of hair and envelopes. The next box held photographs, none digital, all printed, all of children I didn't recognize. Most were crying. I reported everything. But when I went back with the cops, the unit was spotless. My name was suddenly on the rental agreement. The smell hit me first when I walked back into that facility. It wasn't the mustiness I expected from abandoned storage units. This was different, sharper, like bleach mixed with something metallic that made my throat close up. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in that sickly yellow glow that makes your skin look dead. I've been doing cleanouts for almost a decade. People die, families scatter, and someone has to deal with what gets left behind. Usually it's furniture, old Christmas decorations, boxes of tax returns nobody wants to sort through. I'd seen my share of weird stuff, but nothing that made my hands shake like they were shaking when I held those photographs. The woman at the front desk had been nervous when she handed me the keys. She kept glancing at her computer screen, then at me, then back at the screen. Her fingers drummed against the counter in a rhythm that seemed too fast, too anxious for a routine transaction. When I asked about the mix-up with the unit numbers, she just shrugged and said these things happen, but her voice cracked when she said it. I should have walked away right then. The lock on Unit 63 was different from the others. Newer, the kind you see on high-security storage. It took me longer than usual to get it open, and when I did, the silence inside felt wrong. Most storage units echo when you step into them. This one swallowed sound. Those boxes were stacked with military precision, each one identical in size, sealed with that heavy-duty tape that takes forever to cut through. The labels were handwritten in block letters so careful they looked printed. Do not open in black marker with dates underneath that went back years. Some boxes had numbers, others had initials that meant nothing to me then. I opened the first box because that's what I do. I open things, sort them, decide what is value and what goes to the dump. The children's clothes inside were folded like they'd just come from the store. Pressed, organized by size. Each piece had a small white tag safety pinned to it with handwritten information I couldn't make sense of. Names maybe, or codes. The hair was worse than the clothes. Dozens of small envelopes, each containing a single lock tied with ribbon. Different colors, different textures, some curly, some straight, all clean like it had been washed before being cut. The envelopes had the same careful handwriting as the box labels, dates and numbers that formed no pattern I could understand. My phone died when I tried to call the police the first time. Just went black even though I'd charged it that morning. The facility's landline in the office didn't work either. The woman at the desk said they'd been having problems with the phones all week, but she avoided eye contact when she said it. The photographs in the second box changed everything. They weren't family snapshots or school pictures. These were different, professional quality, but wrong in every way that mattered. The children looked scared. Some were clearly crying. Others had that empty stare you see in people who have given up fighting whatever's happening to them. I counted them, 37 photographs, different children, different locations, but the same photographer. I could tell by the lighting, the angle, the way the shots were composed. Someone had taken time with these, someone who knew what they were doing. That's when I noticed the camera equipment in the corner. Expensive stuff covered by a tarp I hadn't seen in the dim light. Professional lenses, tripods, lighting equipment that looked barely used. There was a laptop too, password protected, with stickers covering the manufacturer's logo. I drove straight to the police station. Didn't stop at home, didn't call ahead. Just walked in and told the desk sergeant I'd found something that needed immediate attention. The detective they assigned to me was younger than I'd expected. He listened without interrupting, took notes in a small pad that looked like it had seen better days. He said they'd investigate immediately, asked me not to go back to the facility until they'd processed the scene. I gave him the key, the rental paperwork, everything I had. He promised to call me within 24 hours with an update. The call never came. When I went back to the facility 3 days later, the woman at the front desk didn't recognize me, said she'd never seen me before, but she had a rental agreement with my name on it dated 6 months ago. My signature at the bottom, though I'd never signed anything like it. The monthly payments had been coming out of a bank account I didn't recognize, but somehow had my social security number attached to it. Unit 63 was empty, not just cleaned out but scrubbed. The walls had been repainted. The floor looked like it had been power washed. Even the smell was gone, replaced by the artificial lemon scent of industrial cleaning products. The police had no record of my visit. The detective I'd spoken to didn't exist in their system. When I described him to the desk sergeant, the man just stared at me like I was describing a ghost. I hired a private investigator to look into the rental agreement. He found the bank account, all right, opened in my name 2 years ago with documents I'd never signed. The account had been receiving automatic deposits from a company that didn't seem to exist outside of a P.O. box and a disconnected phone number. The investigator stopped returning my calls after a week. When I went to his office, the building manager said he'd moved out overnight, left no forwarding address. I still have copies of some of the photographs. I'd taken pictures with my phone before it died that day in the storage unit. They're blurry but clear enough to see faces. I've shown them to missing children organizations, posted them on websites, sent them to journalists who specialize in this kind of story. Nobody wants to touch it. They all say the same thing, without verifiable sources, without official police reports, without corroborating evidence. There's nothing they can do. But I keep looking at those faces, those scared, crying children who might still be out there somewhere, who might need someone to remember that they existed, that their pictures were in a box labeled "Do Not Open," in a storage unit that somehow became mine without my knowledge. The rental agreement is still active. The payments keep coming out of that phantom bank account. Sometimes I drive by the facility, but I never go inside. The woman at the front desk waves at me now like we're old friends, like I've been renting that unit for years. Maybe I have, maybe I just don't remember it the way it really happened. Maybe those photographs were mine all along, and the horror I felt when I found them was just the shock of remembering something I'd tried to forget. The only thing I know for certain is that Unit 63 isn't empty anymore. I can see boxes through the gap under the door when I walk past. New boxes with the same careful handwriting on the labels. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I'm the one who's been putting them there. Crime 4, I didn't plant anything that year, but my dog kept digging in the same patch of earth. Eventually, I helped him. We hit something hard, a rusted metal box. Inside was a diary thick with mud and mildew. I shouldn't have read it. Every entry detailed things that happened in my neighborhood, disappearances, break-ins, fires, written in first person. The final entry said, "They buried me here so no one would know, but someone always finds the truth eventually." That patch of dirt hasn't stopped sinking since I opened it. The first entry was dated 3 years ago. The handwriting was careful, deliberate, like someone practicing penmanship. It described a house fire 2 streets over. I remembered that fire. The whole neighborhood watched the flames dance against the evening sky. But the diary entry described it from inside the house, watching the family sleep as smoke filled their lungs. The writer claimed to have said it. The family survived, barely. The cause was ruled electrical. I should have stopped reading then. Instead, I turned the page. The second entry talked about a missing teenager from our subdivision. The writer detailed following her jogging route, learning her schedule, watching her from parked cars. The entry described her final moments with nauseating precision. But that girl was found safe 2 states away, living with her boyfriend. She'd run away. Everyone knew that. Each entry contradicted what I knew to be true, yet the details were impossibly accurate. The diary writer knew about the crack in the sidewalk where the teenager always slowed down. They knew about the loose floorboard in the burned house that creaked when stepped on. They knew things only someone who had been there could know. I started carrying the diary with me, checking entries against my memories. The more I read, the more my certainty crumbled. Had the fire really been electrical? Had the girl really run away willingly? I found myself questioning everything I thought I knew about my own neighborhood. The handwriting began to change as I progressed through the entries. The careful script became hurried, desperate. Words were crossed out, rewritten, pages torn and taped back together. The writers seemed to be arguing with themselves, questioning their own memories just as I was questioning mine. One entry stood out. It described a break-in at my own house, written as if the author had been inside. They described the layout of my kitchen, the squeak of my back door, the smell of coffee that always lingered in my hallway. They wrote about watching me sleep, counting my breaths, measuring the rise and fall of my chest. I never reported a break-in. Nothing was ever stolen. But reading those words, I remembered nights when I'd wake up feeling watched, mornings when I'd find doors I was certain I'd locked standing open. I started researching the incidents mentioned in the diary. Police reports didn't match the entries, but they didn't completely contradict them either. Details were different, timelines shifted, but the core events had happened. Fires, disappearances, break-ins, accidents, all real, all unsolved or explained away. The deeper I dug, the more I realized how little I actually knew about the people around me. Neighbors I'd waved to for years became strangers. Their smiles seemed forced, their conversations hollow. I found myself studying faces, looking for signs of guilt, for recognition, for some indication that they knew about the diary. I noticed things I'd never seen before. The way certain neighbors avoided eye contact when walking past the spot where I'd found the box. How conversations stopped when I approached. The way people seemed to know I'd found something before I ever mentioned it. The diary's final entries became increasingly erratic. Words were misspelled, sentences fragment, thoughts incomplete. The writers seemed to be losing their grip on reality, or perhaps gaining too clear a view of it. They wrote about being watched, followed, hunted. They wrote about secrets that couldn't stay buried, about truth that demanded to be told. And then I found the entry about me. It described my daily routine with disturbing accuracy. My morning coffee, my evening walks, the way I always checked my locks twice before bed, but it was written as if I were the target, not the observer, as if someone had been studying me the same way the diary writer had studied their other subjects. The handwriting in this entry was different, cleaner, more like my own. I stopped reading after that. I tried to bury the diary again, to put it back in the ground where it belonged, but the box wouldn't stay buried. Every morning I'd find it sitting on the surface, dirt scattered around it like something had clawed its way out from underneath. I've been carrying the diary for weeks now. I've memorized every entry, every contradiction, every impossible detail. And I've started to notice that my own handwriting has begun to change. It's becoming more careful, more deliberate, like someone practicing penmanship. The neighborhood feels different now. People avoid me, cross the street when they see me coming. I catch them whispering, pointing, watching from behind curtains. They know something I don't, or maybe they know something I do. I found a pen in my pocket yesterday. I don't remember putting it there. The ink matches the later entries in the diary perfectly. There's a blank page at the very end of the diary. Sometimes I catch myself staring at it, feeling the weight of the pen in my hand. There are stories that need to be told, truths that demand to be written. The fire that wasn't electrical, the girl who didn't run away willingly, the break-ins that were never reported. The things I've seen, the things I've done, the things I remember doing even though I know I never did them. I understand now why the diary was buried. Some truths are too dangerous to leave above ground, but someone always finds them eventually. Someone always digs them up, reads them, carries them forward. The pen feels heavier each day. The blank page seems to grow larger, and that patch of dirt in my backyard keeps sinking, as if the earth itself is trying to swallow something that refuses to stay buried. I think I know who wrote the diary now. I think I've always known. The question isn't who buried it. The question is who's going to write the next entry. Crime 5, we hired him to patrol the abandoned complex before demolition. No cameras, just scheduled check-ins with a radio. One night he stopped responding. We searched and found nothing. No blood, no struggle, just his hat on the ground and the key ring still hanging on the front gate. The next day his logbook was on my desk. The last page read, "I'm not alone in here. They're watching me move, but I don't hear footsteps, just breathing. The demolition company quit." I went in alone. What I saw made me quit something too, sleeping. I should have left it there, should have taken the insurance money and walked away from the whole project. But something about that logbook entry wouldn't let me rest. The handwriting was shaky, uneven, like someone had written it while their hands trembled. I'd seen his writing before on reports and timesheets. This wasn't the same steady script. The radio crackled when I picked it up from evidence storage. Static filled the small room, but underneath, I swear I heard something else. A pattern maybe, like breathing that didn't quite match the rhythm of life. I pressed the transmission button and spoke his call sign into the void. Nothing came back but that same unnatural static. I started visiting the building during daylight, telling myself I was just securing the property. The front entrance still smelled like his cigarettes, that particular brand he always smoked during breaks. Menthol mixed with something metallic I couldn't place. The scent lingered in corners where it had no business being, rooms he'd never entered according to his patrol routes. His logbook became my obsession. I read every entry from his first shift to his last. The early pages were routine, building secure, no incidents. Standard security language, but as weeks passed, the entries grew longer, more detailed. He started noting sounds, pipes settling, wind through broken windows. Then he began describing sounds that made no sense. Footsteps in rooms above him when he was on the top floor. Voices in languages he didn't recognize coming from empty offices. I found his backup radio in the guard station. The battery was dead, but when I charged it, something strange happened. The device picked up conversations that seemed to be happening in real time, but the voices were discussing events from months ago. Workers talking about pouring concrete for foundations that had been laid years before the building was even planned. I recorded everything, played it back for others. They heard only static. The maintenance logs told a different story than what I remembered. According to the records, we'd hired 2 security guards, not 1. The second name was listed as starting the same night our guard disappeared, but I had no memory of authorizing a second hire. No application, no interview, no background check. Just a name in the schedule that made my vision blur when I tried to focus on it. I started sleeping in the building, not intentionally at first. I'd fall asleep in the guard station while reviewing footage from the few working cameras and wake up hours later with no memory of drifting off. The security monitors showed empty hallways, but sometimes I'd catch movement in my peripheral vision. When I turned to look directly, nothing was there, just the faint impression of someone who had just stepped out of frame. The employees who had worked in the building before it was abandoned started calling me. Not all at once, but over several weeks. They wanted to know why I was asking about them, why someone had been contacting their references, their former coworkers, but I hadn't contacted anyone. Someone else was investigating them, using my name, asking questions about their last days in the building. Questions about whether they remembered anything unusual, whether they'd noticed anyone who didn't belong. I found a second logbook hidden behind a loose panel in the guard station wall. The handwriting was different, neater, but the dates overlapped with our missing guard's entries. This second guard wrote about watching the first guard, following his routes, noting his habits. The entries read like surveillance reports. Subject stops at vending machines even though they're unplugged. Subject talks to himself in the elevator shaft. Subject leaves his radio on channel 7, but broadcasts on channel 3. The radio frequency became my lifeline to understanding what had happened. Channel 7 carried normal security chatter from buildings across the district, but Channel 3 was different. Late in the evening, I'd pick up transmissions that sounded like our missing guard reporting in. His voice, his call sign, giving updates on his patrol, but the locations he described didn't match the building's layout. He talked about a basement level that didn't exist, about stairwells that led to floors we'd never built. I started mapping his radio reports against the building's blueprints. The discrepancies were subtle at first. A door that should open east, but he described as opening west. A hallway that should end at the fire exit, but he claimed continued around a corner. When I walked these routes myself, following his descriptions rather than the blueprints, I found spaces that shouldn't exist. Rooms that appeared on no architectural plans, accessed through doors that looked like maintenance panels. The strangest discovery was the second set of keys. I found them in the lost and found box, tagged with a date from before we'd hired security. The keys fit locks throughout the building, but also opened doors I hadn't known existed. Doors that led to observation rooms with one-way glass overlooking the main floors. Someone had been watching the workers, the tenants, probably for years, watching and taking notes. I confronted the building's previous owner about the hidden rooms. He went pale when I described what I'd found, claimed he'd never authorized any surveillance installations, but his hands shook as he signed papers transferring full liability to our company. He left town the same week, forwarded his mail to an address that turned out to be a vacant lot. The night I decided to stay in the building until sunrise, I heard them both. 2 distinct sets of footsteps patrolling different routes through the complex. One set heavy, deliberate, following the security protocols we'd established. The other lighter, more cautious, staying just out of sight. I followed the heavier steps, thinking I'd finally found our missing guard, but the footsteps led me in circles, up stairwells and down hallways, always just around the next corner. Dawn broke. I found 2 logbooks on the guard station desk. One was familiar, our missing guard's final entries. The other was new, filled with observations about me. My habits, my investigation, my growing obsession with solving the disappearance. The handwriting was mine, but I had no memory of writing any of it. The final entry in my own hand read, "Subject believes he's investigating us. He doesn't realize he's been hired to replace us. The building needs its watchers. It always has." I left the keys on the desk and walked out. The demolition company wouldn't return my calls. The property sits empty now, officially condemned but never torn down. Sometimes I drive past and see lights in windows that should be boarded up. Security vehicles parked outside that belong to no company I recognize. I never found out what happened to our security guard, but I learned something worse. Some buildings hire their own protection. And sometimes when you go looking for the missing, you become what others will search for. The radio still crackles on Channel 3. I don't listen anymore, but I know my voice is there now, reporting in from rooms that don't exist to supervisors who were never alive. Crime 6, when he moved into the downstairs unit, he greeted me by name, said it was good to see me again. I'd never met him, but he knew things, details about my apartment, my habits, my routines. When I asked how, he smiled. "You told me." I set up a hidden camera facing my door. What I captured shook me, him standing there for hours, whispering to the peephole, to the lock, sometimes crouching, sometimes laughing. The footage never showed how he got inside, but I found a cup of coffee on my nightstand that wasn't mine. The coffee was still warm when I found it. Black, no sugar. I don't drink coffee black. The mug belonged to my kitchen set, but I'd never taken it from the cupboard. My hands shook as I held it, feeling the residual heat through the ceramic. The smell was different too, not the brand I kept in my pantry, but something earthier, more bitter. I replayed the camera footage frame by frame. There he was, standing perfectly still outside my door at what the timestamp showed as the middle of the night. His lips moved constantly, forming words I couldn't make out through the silent recording. His fingers traced patterns on my door frame, following lines only he could see. Then between one frame and the next, he was gone. No movement toward the stairs, no walking away, just gone. The building manager claimed she'd never rented the downstairs unit to anyone. When I pressed her, she grew defensive, insisting the apartment had been vacant for months. But I could hear him down there, footsteps, running water, the faint sound of a television. The smell of cooking food drifted up through the floorboards, familiar scents that reminded me of meals I did but couldn't quite place. I started documenting everything. Every interaction, every strange coincidence, every moment when he seemed to know something he shouldn't. He would appear in the hallway just as I was leaving, commenting on my plans before I'd spoken them aloud. He knew which grocery store I preferred, which route I took to work, which side of the bed I slept on. When I confronted him about these details, he looked genuinely confused by my distress. The recordings multiplied. Hours of footage showing him outside my door, sometimes holding objects I recognized from my apartment. A book I'd been reading, a sweater I'd worn the day before, a photograph from my nightstand. He would hold these items close to his face, inhaling deeply, his eyes closed in what looked like concentration or remembrance. I changed my locks, he still got in. I had the super inspect the door frame, the windows, every possible entry point. Everything was secure, untampered with. Yet the evidence of his presence accumulated. Dishes moved in my sink, sheets that smelled different, food missing from my refrigerator in quantities too small to notice unless you were looking for them. The other tenants began avoiding me when I asked about him. They would look away, mumble non-committal responses, hurry past when they saw me approaching. Their discomfort felt practiced, as if they'd been having these conversations for longer than he'd supposedly lived here. One elderly woman finally stopped when I cornered her by the mailboxes. She studied my face with an expression I couldn't read. "You look tired," she said. "Have you been sleeping?" When I started to explain about the coffee, about the recordings, about him, she placed a weathered hand on my arm. "Honey, that apartment's been empty since the accident. Nobody's lived down there for over a year." I pulled up the footage on my phone, showed her the clear images of him standing outside my door. She squinted at the screen, her face growing pale. "That's impossible," she whispered. "That's just impossible." She wouldn't say why. The building records contradicted everything. According to the management company, the downstairs unit had been uninhabitable since a water leak caused significant damage. They showed me photographs of the interior, rotted floorboards, mold-stained walls, a kitchen gutted down to the studs. But I could still hear him down there, moving around, living his life parallel to mine. I started staying awake, watching the camera feed in real time. He would appear around the same period each night, carrying out his ritual of whispers and touches. But now I noticed something else. In the infrared footage, his body temperature registered differently than it should, cooler in some places, warmer in others, as if heat distributed through him in patterns that didn't match human circulation. The coffee cups multiplied, different mugs from my collection, always placed on my nightstand, always still warm, always tasting of that bitter, unfamiliar blend. I stopped drinking from them, but they kept appearing. Sometimes I would find 2 cups, as if he'd been expecting company, as if he'd been waiting for me to join him. My sleep suffered. I would wake to the sound of my own voice, having conversations I couldn't remember starting. The recordings from inside my apartment showed me talking to empty air, responding to questions no one had asked, laughing at jokes no one had told. In these moments, I looked relaxed, happy even, as if spending time with an old friend. The truth crept in slowly, like water through a crack. The timestamps on my camera footage didn't match the clock on my wall. The conversations I thought I was having with neighbors had no witnesses. The building manager had the same conversation with me multiple times, responding to my questions as if hearing them for the first time every time. I found the lease agreement in my own handwriting, 2 names on the document, mine and his. The signature looked like mine too, but I had no memory of signing it. The date went back months before I thought he'd moved in. According to this document, we'd been living together from the beginning. The recordings showed more than I'd been willing to see. In frame after frame, there were 2 figures outside my door, 2 people whispering, 2 people touching the frame, 2 people holding my belongings, but I'd only been watching one of them. My eyes had been editing the footage in real time, seeing only what I could accept. The coffee was never for me to drink. It was mine, left there by my own hands in a routine I'd forgotten I'd established. The footsteps below weren't coming from the damaged unit. They were echoes from my own apartment, filtered through a building with thinner walls than I'd realized. The familiar scents weren't his cooking. They were the lingering aromas of meals I'd prepared and consumed without remembering. But none of this explained how he knew my name before I'd told him. How he recognized me when I'd never seen his face, how he spoke about shared memories I couldn't access. The footage kept running, and he kept appearing, and the coffee kept getting warmer, and I kept finding myself in conversations that felt like continuations of discussions I'd never begun. The building manager finally admitted the truth when I showed her the lease with both signatures. The downstairs unit had been rented, but not recently. The tenant had died in the water leak that damaged the apartment. An accident, she called it, though her eyes suggested otherwise. He'd lived there for years before that happened, long enough to know everyone in the building, long enough to know their routines, their habits, their names. But that still didn't explain the coffee, or the conversations, or why I kept finding myself standing outside his door, whispering things I couldn't remember saying, holding objects that belonged to both of us, responding to a presence I could feel but couldn't see. The recordings continue. Every night the same ritual. Two figures outside my door, though my eyes insist there's only one. Two voices in conversations, though my ears process only silence. Two sets of belongings moved around my apartment, though my hands remember touching only my own things. The coffee is still warm when I find it, still tastes like his brand, not mine, still appears on my nightstand in mugs I don't remember using. And sometimes when I'm drinking it, I remember fragments of conversations, discussions about weather, about work, about small daily concerns, normal things, comfortable things, the kind of talks you have with someone you've known for a long time. Someone you might have forgotten you were still talking to. Crime 7, I don't mean metaphorically. I mean I looked into my bathroom mirror and saw someone standing in my place. Same face, same clothes, but his mouth moved before mine. His smile was crooked where mine wasn't. I smashed the mirror, cleaned it up, thought it was stress. Then I found photos printed and slipped under my door. Photos of the man in the mirror, living my life, eating my food, sleeping in my bed. Then a handwritten note, "You're the reflection, he's the original." I stopped trusting any surface that shines. The photographs were crisp, professional quality, shot from angles that suggested someone had been inside my apartment for extended periods. In one, I was asleep on my couch, mouth slightly open, television flickering blue light across my face. But I remembered that evening differently. I remembered staying awake, watching the news, alert to every sound in the building. Yet here was evidence of my unconsciousness, captured by someone who knew exactly where to position themselves for the perfect shot. I called the building manager, asked about security footage, spare keys, maintenance visits. His voice carried that practiced patience reserved for tenants who complain too much. No unauthorized entries, no reports of suspicious activity. The lock hadn't been changed in 3 years, and only 2 keys existed, mine and the emergency duplicate in his office safe. He suggested I might be experiencing stress-related episodes, recommended I speak to someone professional. The handwriting on the note was mine, not similar, mine. I compared it to grocery lists, appointment reminders, random scribbles on napkins. The same slight leftward slant, the same way I crossed my T's with a sharp downward stroke. Even the pressure patterns matched, heavy on consonants, lighter on vowels. I'd studied my own writing enough times to know its quirks, its tells. This wasn't forgery. This was me writing words I never remembered forming. I started leaving myself notes, simple ones. Remember to check locks, count the eggs in the fridge, look for anything moved. Each morning I'd find my handwriting responding to itself. Conversations between versions of me I couldn't recall being. The responses were always slightly off, using phrases I recognized but would never choose. Like hearing your voice played back through a recording device, familiar yet foreign. The photos kept appearing, always under the door, always at varying intervals. Me cooking dinner I didn't remember making. Me sitting at my desk, working on documents I'd never seen. Me standing at my window, looking out at the street with an expression I didn't recognize on my own face. Each image was time-stamped, but the dates corresponded to blank spaces in my memory. Not blackouts, just ordinary evenings that had somehow been edited out of my recollection. I installed a camera in my living room, hidden behind books on the shelf, motion-activated memory card that could store weeks of footage. The next morning, the camera was gone. In its place, a photo of me installing it, taken from the exact position where the device had been mounted. My hands were steady in the image, my expression focused. But I remembered trembling during the installation, fumbling with the tiny screws, paranoid about every shadow. The building felt different now. Residents I'd nodded to for years avoided eye contact. The elderly woman from the second floor crossed herself when she saw me in the lobby. The young couple with the crying baby whispered when I passed their door. I wanted to ask what they'd observed, what version of me they'd been encountering, but their body language made it clear they considered me unstable, unpredictable. I found a journal hidden in my bedroom closet, wedged between shoe boxes I rarely touched. My handwriting filled every page, documenting activities I had no memory of performing. Detailed accounts of conversations with neighbors, descriptions of places I'd never visited, relationships with people whose names meant nothing to me. The entries were methodical, observational, written in the voice of someone studying a subject rather than living a life. The most disturbing entry was dated from the previous week. It described watching me sleep, noting the way my breathing changed during different phases of rest, the subtle movements that indicated dream states. The handwriting analyzed my sleep patterns like a scientist recording data. It mentioned feeling confined, restless, eager to experience the world beyond reflection. The final line read, "Tomorrow I'll try staying awake longer." I stopped sleeping in my bed, started catching fragments of rest on the couch, in chairs, always in positions where I could watch the mirrors. But sleep always won eventually, and I'd wake to find new evidence of activity. Dishes I hadn't used, books open to pages I hadn't read, clothes hanging in my closet that I'd never purchased but fit perfectly. The breaking point came when I found police reports. Real ones filed under my name, describing complaints I'd never made. Harassment claims against neighbors, reports of stalking behavior, accusations of property damage. The signatures were mine, the descriptions matched my voice patterns, but the events described were completely foreign to my experience. According to these documents, I'd been causing problems for months, escalating from minor disturbances to genuine threats. I tried to contact the officers who'd taken the reports. They remembered me clearly, described my demeanor, my specific complaints, my increasingly agitated behavior during follow-up visits. Their accounts were detailed, consistent, and completely at odds with my memory. They suggested I might benefit from psychiatric evaluation, that the stress of whatever I was experiencing might be manifesting in ways I couldn't recognize. The final photograph appeared on an evening when I was certain I'd remained awake and alert. It showed me standing in my kitchen, holding the image itself, studying my own face captured in the act of receiving evidence of my unknown actions. The recursion was perfect, terrifying. I was looking at myself, trapped in an infinite loop of observation and denial. I still don't know which version of me is real. The one who writes these words, confused and searching for answers, or the one who leaves evidence of a life I can't remember living. The mirror in my bathroom remains shattered, but reflections appear everywhere: windows, phone screens, the surface of coffee in a white cup. Each time I see him, the other me, the one who seems more comfortable in this existence than I've ever been. The handwritten notes continue appearing. Now they're signed with my name, followed by a title I never gave myself, the original. Crime 8, I was cleaning out my late uncle's office when I found a key labeled Archives. It opened a filing cabinet in the basement, thick folders, faded reports, case photos. It wasn't just random evidence, it was personal. There were surveillance shots of my childhood home, school papers I hadn't seen in decades, a drawing I made in 3rd grade signed by me. Then a page titled, "Subject is unaware, surveillance to continue until instructed." My hands shook. The next page was blank except for a single line, "Who gave you this key?" The basement smelled like dust and old paper, but underneath that was something else, something chemical, metallic. I pulled out another folder, this one heavier. Inside were photographs of my parents' wedding, taken from what looked like a telephoto lens. The angle was wrong, like someone was hiding behind trees. My mother's face was circled in red ink. A note in the margin read, "Confirmed identity, proceed to phase 2." My uncle had been a private investigator, but this wasn't his handwriting. The letters were too careful, too deliberate. I recognized the penmanship, though. It was the same script I'd seen on birthday cards, on grocery lists stuck to our refrigerator, on the back of family photos. My aunt's handwriting, my uncle's wife of 37 years. I sat on the concrete floor, the folder heavy in my lap. The next photograph showed me at age 7, walking to school. Someone had drawn an arrow pointing to my backpack. The note said, "Daily routine established, no deviation detected." There were more photos, me at the playground, getting ice cream, playing in the yard, all taken from a distance, all without my knowledge. The folder contained report cards I'd never seen before, not the ones my parents showed me, but different ones. These had different grades, lower ones, and at the bottom of each, a signature that wasn't mine. Someone had been forging my school records. Someone had been creating a false version of my academic life. I found a cassette tape wrapped in plastic at the bottom of the folder. My hands trembled as I searched for a way to play it. There was an old radio in the corner, covered in dust. The tape clicked into place, and after a few seconds of static, I heard my own voice. But I was speaking words I'd never said, having conversations I'd never had. The voice was mine, but the thoughts weren't. "I don't feel safe at home," the voice said, my voice. "Sometimes I think they're watching me." The recording continued, describing fears I'd never experienced, paranoia I'd never felt. Someone had manipulated my voice, created false evidence of psychological disturbance. I rewound the tape, played it again. The technology was sophisticated. This wasn't a simple recording. Someone had taken snippets of my speech from different contexts, maybe phone calls or conversations, and reassembled them into something entirely different. The result was convincing. If I hadn't known better, I would have believed it was real. The next folder contained medical records, mine but altered, hospital visits I'd never made, medications I'd never taken, diagnoses I'd never received. The documents looked official, complete with letterheads and doctor signatures. But the dates were wrong. Some were from before I was born. Others were from when I was supposed to be in school, but the records showed me in psychiatric facilities. I found a floor plan of my childhood home, marked with entry and exit points. Red X's marked my bedroom window, the back door, the basement entrance. Someone had been planning something, or maybe they'd already done it. Maybe they'd been inside our house while we slept. The photographs became more recent. Me as a teenager at college, at my first job. The surveillance had never stopped. But why? What had I done to deserve this level of scrutiny? What had my family done? I discovered a thick manila envelope marked insurance claims. Inside were documents related to my parents' car accident, but these weren't the official reports. These were drafts, multiple versions of the same incident. In one version, the accident was caused by mechanical failure. In another, it was driver error. In the third, it was deliberately caused by someone tampering with the brakes. My parents had died in that accident. I was 22, just starting my career. The insurance company had paid out quickly, no questions asked. But according to these documents, there had been questions, lots of them, and someone had been working very hard to make sure they weren't answered. I found a photograph of my uncle and aunt at my parents' funeral, but they weren't mourning, they were watching me. My aunt held a small camera pointed in my direction. Even at the cemetery, even at the graveside, I was being documented. The final folder contained a single sheet of paper. It was a contract dated 3 months before my parents' accident. The terms were simple: surveillance services to be continued until the subject either discovers the truth or becomes a liability. The client's name had been redacted, but the signature at the bottom was clear. My uncle's name written in his familiar scrawl. I sat in that basement for what felt like hours, surrounded by evidence of a surveillance operation that had lasted my entire life. But I still didn't understand why. What had I done? What had my parents done? What threat did we pose? The answer came in the form of a birth certificate. Not mine, my mother's, but the name was wrong. The birthplace was wrong. Everything about it was wrong. My mother hadn't been who I thought she was. She'd been someone else entirely, someone with a different name, a different past. I found more documents, more evidence of fabricated identities. My father had been living under an assumed name too. My entire family had been running from something or someone, and my uncle and aunt had been keeping track of us, documenting our every move, waiting for the right moment to act. The chemical smell in the basement was getting stronger. I followed it to a corner where someone had recently poured bleach over the concrete floor. The stain was still damp. Someone had been here recently, cleaning up evidence, but they'd missed the filing cabinet. They'd missed the key. Or maybe they hadn't missed it at all. Maybe they'd wanted me to find it. Maybe this was part of their plan too. I gathered the folders and headed upstairs. The house felt different now, like it was watching me. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow in the corners, every reflection in the windows seemed suspicious. Had they been watching me here too? Had they seen me discover their secret? My phone buzzed, a text message from an unknown number. You found what you were looking for. Now what are you going to do about it? I looked around the empty house at the shadows that seemed to move when I wasn't looking directly at them. Someone knew I was here. Someone knew what I'd found, and they were waiting to see what I would do next. The key was still in my hand, warm from my grip, but now I understood what it really was. It wasn't just a key to a filing cabinet. It was a key to a truth I wasn't sure I wanted to unlock completely. Because the deeper I dug, the more I realized that the people I'd trusted most, my own family, had been lying to me my entire life. And the people who'd been watching me, documenting me, following me for decades, might be the only ones who knew who I really was. Crime 9, I got pulled over by two men who weren't cops, no badges, no real IDs. They showed me footage of a robbery. The man had my face, my voice, even my limp from an old injury. But I wasn't there. I couldn't have been. They didn't care. They wanted the money back. I tried to prove my innocence, but every alibi unraveled. My job records were gone. My phone history wiped. My face was on wanted posters in places I'd never been. Someone was living as me. And they were better at it than I ever was. The smell of burnt coffee still lingered in my car when they approached the window. I remember thinking how strange it was that they wore suits on such a hot afternoon. The fabric looked expensive, but their shoes were scuffed like they'd been walking through gravel. One of them had these pale, thin fingers that drummed against my door frame while he spoke. The other kept checking his phone, squinting at the screen like he was comparing something. They played the video on a tablet, and I watched myself rob a convenience store. Not someone who looked like me. The same scar above my left eyebrow from when I fell off my bike as a child. The same unconscious way I rub my jaw when I'm nervous. Even the way I favored my right leg, that subtle shift in weight that came from breaking my ankle years back. The person on screen knew my mannerisms better than most people who actually knew me. I told them I'd never been to that store, never even heard of the street it was on. They nodded like they'd expected that answer. The one with the thin fingers pulled out a manila folder thick with photographs. Each image showed the same face committing different crimes across different locations. Gas stations, banks, jewelry stores. Always the same methodical approach, always leaving through the back exit, always that slight limp. My hands started sweating against the steering wheel. The leather felt sticky, foreign. I asked to see their identification again, but they just smiled. Real cops would have shown me their badges a dozen times by now. Real cops would have arrested me or let me go. These men wanted something else. They said the stolen money needed to be returned. When I told them I didn't have any money to return, the phone checker showed me bank statements with my name on them. Deposits that matched the exact amount stolen in each robbery. Account numbers I'd never seen before, signatures that looked more like mine than my actual signature. I asked how this was possible. They suggested I was playing dumb, but their eyes held a different story, something that looked almost like pity mixed with professional curiosity. They knew I wasn't lying, but they also knew it didn't matter. The thin-fingered man handed me a business card with only a phone number on it. No name, no company, just 10 digits printed in simple black font on cream-colored paper. He said I had 48 hours to figure out where my other self had hidden the money. If I couldn't produce it, they'd make sure the authorities received all the evidence they'd collected. I drove home with my rearview mirror full of their sedan following at a careful distance. Not threatening, just present, like a reminder that this conversation wasn't over. My apartment felt different when I walked in. Everything was exactly where I'd left it, but somehow wrong. I checked my computer, my phone, my mail, nothing unusual. But when I called my workplace to verify my schedule from the day of the first robbery, they said they had no record of me being there. The manager I'd worked with for 3 years claimed she'd never seen me before. I pulled out old photos looking for proof of my existence, my real existence. The pictures showed me at birthday parties, family gatherings, work events, but when I looked closer, something was off. My smile seemed forced in ways I didn't remember. My posture was different, more confident, more purposeful. Had I always stood like that? Had my laugh always sounded so calculated? The phone rang. The number from the business card appeared on my screen before I'd even decided whether to call it. I let it ring 4 times before answering. No one spoke, but I could hear breathing, patient and steady. In the background, very faintly, I heard the sound of fingers drumming against wood. I hung up and immediately called my sister. She answered on the first ring, which was unusual. She always let calls go to voicemail. When I asked her to confirm where I'd been on specific dates, she paused too long before answering. Her voice sounded rehearsed, like she was reading from a script she'd practiced but didn't quite believe. That night I found the key under my bathroom sink, taped behind the pipe where no reasonable person would ever look. It was small, brass, with numbers etched into the head. The kind of key that opens safety deposit boxes or storage units. I'd never seen it before, but it felt familiar in my palm, like my fingers had held it many times. The address came to me in a dream, or maybe it was a memory surfacing from somewhere I couldn't access while awake. A storage facility on the edge of town, behind a row of auto repair shops that looked like they'd been abandoned for years. The unit number matched the numbers on the key. Inside the storage unit, I found clothes that fit me perfectly but that I'd never bought. Shoes worn down in the exact pattern my gait would create. A wallet with credit cards in my name but with a different signature. And photographs of me in places I'd never been, with people I'd never met, looking happier and more confident than I'd ever remembered feeling. The money was there too, stacks of bills organized by denomination, each wrapped with a note written in my handwriting. The notes contained details about each robbery, but they were written like diary entries, full of emotions and justifications I'd never had. This other version of me seemed proud of his work, almost artistic in his approach to crime. I sat on the concrete floor of that storage unit for what felt like hours, holding evidence of a life I'd apparently lived but couldn't remember. The smell of old cardboard and motor oil drifted in from the repair shops outside. My phone buzzed with a text from the cream-colored business card number. Found what you were looking for. I texted back that I had the money, that I was ready to return it. The response came immediately. Keep it. You earned it. That's when I realized they weren't interested in the money. They were interested in me, in how I'd react to discovering this parallel version of my existence. The men in suits weren't working for the victims of these crimes. They were working for whoever had created this other me, testing to see if the real me would accept or reject what the fake me had accomplished. I drove home with the money in my trunk and the photographs in my passenger seat. The faces of people I'd apparently loved stared up at me from the photos, their eyes full of warmth directed at someone who looked exactly like me but wasn't me. Or maybe it was me, and I just couldn't remember being happy. The men in suits never contacted me again, but sometimes I catch glimpses of that other version of myself in store windows or car mirrors. He's always walking away, always just out of reach. He moves with purpose, with confidence, with the certainty of someone who knows exactly who he is. I kept the money, I kept the photographs, and late at night when I can't sleep, I try on those clothes that fit me so perfectly. They make me stand differently, walk differently. They make me feel like the person in those photographs, the person who could plan elaborate robberies and live a double life without ever questioning his own identity. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the copy and he's the original. Sometimes I wonder if we're both copies of someone else entirely. But mostly, I wonder if the men in suits are still watching, still waiting to see which version of me will eventually win. Story 10. The old Polaroid held secrets within its faded hues, a relic of a distant birthday celebration. Amidst the smiling faces and flickering candles, there lurked a mystery, subtle yet unsettling. The daughter, tasked with sifting through her mother's attic treasures, stumbled upon the box of forgotten memories. Titled simply Memories, it housed a collection of snapshots capturing moments of joy from her childhood. Sarah Winters, her fingers tracing the edges of the photographs, felt a chill as she noticed the figure in the background, a shadowy presence standing on the periphery of each gathering. A man unknown to the family, gradually drawing closer in each photo. His obscured features hinted at a darkness that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. As she delved deeper into the enigma, Sarah unearthed a series of images depicting the same mysterious figure, moving stealthily through the frames of different family events. He remained unnoticed, a phantom observer with a sinister purpose. Concerned and bewildered, she reached out to her father, hoping for clarity. "Dad, who is this man haunting our family photos?" she questioned, her voice trembling with unease. His response was a sharp intake of breath, a pause pregnant with unspoken dread. "There shouldn't be anyone there but us," he finally murmured, his tone heavy with concern. Seeking answers, Sarah sought the help of Detective Marcus Reed, a seasoned investigator with a keen eye for detail. Spread across his desk, the photographs revealed a chilling progression, the mysterious figure inching closer to the unsuspecting children in each snapshot. The detective's brow furrowed as he studied the evidence, the rain outside providing a somber backdrop to their unsettling discovery. Despite thorough investigations and inquiries, no one could identify the shadowy figure lurking in the background of the photos. His presence defied explanation, a ghostly enigma that seemed to elude the grasp of reality. The more they uncovered, the more the mystery deepened, leading them down a path fraught with darkness and dread. With the aid of modern technology, the obscured details of the figure began to surface distinctive markings, a telltale scar, a glimpse of a face previously hidden in shadow. Through painstaking efforts, they unraveled the identity of the phantom from the past, a man named Robert Keller with a chilling history of disappearances and unsolved crimes. The threads of the past intertwined with the present, revealing a web of horror that had long remained concealed. As the truth emerged, so did the grim reality of the man behind the shadow in the family photos. His malevolent presence, captured in frozen moments of time, finally faced the light of justice. Sitting in solitude amidst the haunting images, Sarah grappled with the weight of revelations that spanned decades. The closure brought by the discoveries was bittersweet, offering answers tainted with sorrow and loss. The box of memories now held a sinister significance, a testament to the unseen dangers that lurked within the seemingly ordinary. In the stillness of her apartment, Sarah placed the photos back in their box, a symbol of closure and remembrance. The hidden figure, once a specter haunting her past, now stood exposed in the harsh light of truth. And as she gazed at the final birthday photo, she felt a sense of peace, knowing that the shadows of the past had been brought into the light where justice could finally prevail. Story 11. Renovations always have a way of unveiling hidden treasures, old relics, forgotten memories, whispers of the past. But when Sarah and Michael decided to lift the floorboards of their newly purchased Victorian-era home, they stumbled upon a folded letter tucked beneath the wooden planks. The paper, aged and fragile, bore a cryptic message: "Beware the knocker." Before they could make sense of it, 3 sharp knocks reverberated through the silent house, sending shivers down their spines. Sarah and Michael had been drawn to the charm and history of the estate-auctioned home, unaware of the unsettling discovery awaiting them. Detective Alina Reed, with her seasoned partner, arrived at the scene to investigate. The floorboards lay open, revealing a dark void underneath. With practiced hands, Reed carefully retrieved the note, already tainted by the touch of the homeowners. As the couple recounted the chilling knocking sound, Reed delved into their backgrounds, finding no cause for suspicion. Sarah and Michael appeared to be a typical newlywed couple, with stable lives and a promising future. However, the house harbored a more intricate past. Once belonging to the Hargrove family, the home had stood empty for years after the passing of its last inhabitant, Margaret Hargrove, an elderly widow known for her solitude and kindness. Despite a seemingly normal history, the discovery of the letter raised unsettling questions. Forensic analysis dated the note back 2 decades, hinting at a time of distress and fear. Margaret, in her 60s at the time, had lived with her late husband, Franklin, a respected retired teacher with a passion for woodworking. Yet whispers of paranoia and a mysterious collector began to surface. Through careful investigation, Reed uncovered a web of deceit and tragedy. Franklin's former student recalled his descent into paranoia, mentioning a shadowy figure who haunted his final days. Margaret's sister, though fading in memory, revealed snippets of a dark secret involving debts, threats, and a relentless knocker. Returning to the house with a forensic team, Reed unearthed a chilling truth buried beneath the foundation. A male skeleton, identified as Victor Mercer, a notorious loan shark and gambling collector who had vanished without a trace. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place: Franklin's desperation, Margaret's fear, and the dark deed that had been concealed for years. Margaret's diaries, hidden in the attic, provided a haunting account of the events that transpired. The knocking, the fear, the burden of guilt. As the truth came to light, justice was served, albeit cold and delayed. The house, tainted by its history, stood abandoned, a silent witness to the secrets it held. Local whispers spoke of ghostly knocks in the dead of night, a reminder of the past that refused to fade. The note, now stored as evidence, bore a warning that echoed through the empty halls: "Beware the knocker." Margaret's cryptic message lingered, leaving unanswered questions and chilling possibilities. In the end, Detective Reed closed the case, acknowledging that some mysteries remain unsolved, their truths buried in the shadows of the past. The house, now a relic of bygone days, stood as a testament to the darkness that can lurk behind closed doors. And as night fell over the vacant halls, the echoes of 3 distinct knocks whispered of secrets long forgotten, waiting to be discovered once more. Story 12, The Mysterious Parcel, appeared on Sarah Miller's doorstep, devoid of any traceable information, a plain cardboard box, faintly damp from the morning mist. It wasn't intended for her, the name attached to it foreign and unfamiliar. She hesitated, knowing she should have disregarded it, left it where it lay. But curiosity beckoned, and she succumbed. With cautious hands, she peeled back the tape, half expecting mundane contents. Yet nestled within was a VHS tape, accompanied by a solitary sticky note with a cryptic command, "Watch alone." Sarah's gaze lingered on the enigmatic black cassette cradled in her hands, an inexplicable weight pressing down on her, laden with a sense of forbidden knowledge. Her fingertips lingered over the worn edges, tracing the imperfections etched into the plastic casing. The note, bearing the urgent imprints of its author, hinted at a hidden urgency, a secret clamoring to be unraveled. Amidst the backdrop of a tranquil suburban neighborhood, Sarah found herself ensnared in a web of intrigue. The ordinary sounds of everyday life enveloped her: a distant dog's bark, the laughter of children playing, the rhythmic hum of a lawnmower slicing through the stillness of the morning. Oblivious to the clandestine delivery at her doorstep, the world carried on in blissful ignorance. Bringing the enigmatic package inside, Sarah placed it on her kitchen counter, uncertainty gnawing at the edges of her consciousness. The name on the box, Daniel Whitaker, held no significance in her realm of existence. Having resided in her home for years, she had never encountered mail addressed to such a person. The former residents, the Johnsons, had bid farewell long ago, leaving behind a legacy of unclaimed letters. Curiosity waged war with apprehension as Sarah's gaze shifted to the relic of a past era, her VCR standing as a relic of nostalgia. The tape beckoned to her, an enigma shrouded in faded black plastic. Against the backdrop of her rational mind, she succumbed to temptation, sliding the tape into the waiting machine. Initially, only static greeted her, a cacophony of white noise gradually coalescing into discernible shapes. A dimly lit room materialized on the screen, bathed in the soft glow of a solitary lamp. The camera angle skewed as if hastily positioned, revealing a man seated in a wooden chair, his features obscured by shadows. "My name is Daniel Whitaker." His voice, a whisper of quiet resolve, filled the room. "If you're watching this, they have found you, and they will find me too." Leaning forward, he emerged from the shadows, his countenance a testament to sleepless nights and perpetual vigilance. Deep-set eyes, unkempt stubble, disheveled hair, his appearance spoke of a tumultuous existence. "I am innocent," he declared, his voice tinged with desperation. "But they have framed me with evidence, DNA, fingerprints, all linking me to a crime I did not commit." The camera jolted as he adjusted its position, offering glimpses of a Spartan room devoid of comfort or permanence. "The truth must be known," his voice quivered with emotion. "I never knew Catherine Walsh until her face graced the headlines, lifeless, a victim of murder, and yet my presence, my essence, tainted the crime scene." Detective Eliza Ramirez scrutinized the identical VHS tape before her, the latest in a series that had surfaced mysteriously. 5 tapes, 5 recipients, all bearing the desperate plea of Daniel Whitaker, a man implicated in the murder of Catherine Walsh, who had vanished without a trace. The case, initially straightforward, had taken a convoluted turn with the emergence of the tapes. Ramirez grappled with the conflicting narratives, torn between the official account and the unsettling revelations presented before her. As she delved deeper into the enigma surrounding Catherine Walsh's murder, Ramirez uncovered a tangled web of deceit and corporate malfeasance. Walsh's involvement in a whistleblower case against PharmaCorp, a pharmaceutical giant with shadowy connections, unveiled a darker truth lurking beneath the surface. The detective's suspicions were aroused by the meticulous orchestration of evidence against Whitaker, DNA traces strategically placed, witness testimonies eerily rehearsed, and security footage conveniently corrupted. Sarah Miller found herself entangled in the unfolding drama when a second package arrived at her doorstep, a trove of incriminating documents linking PharmaCorp to a nefarious cover-up. As Ramirez connected the dots, a clearer picture emerged of a conspiracy designed to silence the truth at any cost. Whitaker's trail of breadcrumbs led to a clandestine storage unit, where a cache of damning evidence lay concealed: a journal detailing the conspiracy, Catherine's incriminating files, and the elaborate scheme to frame an innocent man. Justice in its quiet manifestation prevailed through the unrelenting pursuit of truth. Executives were indicted, the head of security turned state's witness, and the insidious machinations of PharmaCorp were laid bare. Sarah and Whitaker stood in silent communion, the weight of their shared ordeal palpable in the stillness. "Why me?" Sarah's inquiry hung in the air, a testament to the randomness of fate. Whitaker's gaze bore the weariness of a man burdened by injustice. "The algorithm chose you," he murmured, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. In the aftermath of deception and redemption, Sarah and Whitaker found solace in the unexpected convergence of their paths. The VHS tapes, relics of a tumultuous journey, stood as silent witnesses to the enduring power of truth etched in plastic, preserved in memory. Story 13, the gentle current whispered its lullaby that morning, the water shimmering like liquid glass under the soft light of dawn. The fisherman's boat glided effortlessly, almost as if time had slowed to a crawl on this peaceful river. Amidst the tranquility, a curious sight caught the fisherman's eye: a solitary suitcase bobbing near the shore, its presence almost ethereal against the stillness of the water. At first glance, it seemed like a forgotten relic, a mere afterthought left by the river's playful dance. But as the fisherman drew closer, a pungent scent clawed its way into his senses, thick and suffocating, a mystery unfolding before him. The suitcase, adorned with chains that clung to its rusted edges, held secrets within its weathered confines. When the authorities pried it open, they were met not by mundane garments, but by a macabre tableau. Tangled strands of hair entwined with fingers frozen in a grotesque ballet, a silent plea frozen in time. And nestled at the bottom, a cryptic note whispered haunting words: "This isn't the first." Detective Sarah Mercer arrived at the scene, her steps measured as she approached the grim tableau. The victim, a woman in her prime, her features now a canvas of watery decay, lay in silent repose. The medical examiner's meticulous work painted a portrait of tragedy, each detail a brushstroke in the solemn narrative unfolding by the riverside. As Mercer observed the victim's serene facade, a chilling realization gripped her soul. It wasn't the act of disposal that unsettled her, but the eerie reverence with which the victim had been adorned: nails meticulously groomed, hair delicately styled, draped in garments of opulence. "She was not discarded," Mercer murmured, her gaze lost in the gentle ripples caressing the shore. "She was presented." The victim was soon identified as Catherine Walsh, a figure in the world of high-end real estate, her life a tapestry of ambition and solitude. Divorced, childless, she dwelled in the cocoon of an affluent neighborhood, her existence veiled in a cloak of privacy. Colleagues painted a portrait of a woman driven by perfection, her meticulous nature a shield against the chaos of the world. A missing person report from her assistant unveiled the first thread in the tapestry of Walsh's fate, her absence at a crucial appointment, a missed opportunity that echoed with the weight of tragedy. She would never miss this, the assistant's voice trembled with conviction. This sale was her crowning achievement. Within the walls of Walsh's immaculate abode, investigators unearthed a world curated with precision, an oasis of order amidst the chaos of life. Yet in the sanctuary of her home office, a crack in the facade revealed a hidden chamber of secrets. A journal, its pages a mosaic of fear and paranoia, whispered of unseen eyes and whispered threats lurking in the shadows. A digital labyrinth of cryptic messages intertwined with Walsh's cyber footprint, a symphony of unease played out in the digital realm. "I see your perfection," the words echoed like a haunting refrain, a siren's call in the vast expanse of the virtual realm. Mercer pieced together the fragments, a mosaic of obsession taking shape before her eyes. The pivotal moment arrived in the guise of a humble pawnshop owner, a guardian of forgotten treasures in a sea of lost dreams. A necklace, a beacon of emerald elegance, wove a thread connecting two disparate worlds. Michael Linden, a specter in the guise of a maintenance worker, emerged from the shadows, his presence a whisper in the winds of fate. Surveillance footage painted a portrait of a man consumed by a silent passion, his movements a ballet of calculated precision. Walsh's world became his stage, her every move a note in the symphony of his obsession. Within the confines of his modest abode, a gallery of stolen moments adorned the walls, a gallery of souls captured in amber. The interrogation room bore witness to a revelation, a confession that shattered the silence like a thunderclap in the night. Linden's words, devoid of emotion, unveiled a truth veiled in madness. They were flawed, his voice cut through the stillness, a blade of truth honed on the whetstone of obsession. Their perfection was a lie. The hunt for truth led Mercer down a dark path, a trail of shattered illusions and broken dreams. In remote corners of the world, suitcases emerged like specters from the mist, each harboring a soul lost to the abyss of obsession. Linden's ritual of perfection, a twisted dance of correction, unfurled before the eyes of justice. As the gavel fell, sealing Linden's fate in the annals of history, a shroud of closure descended upon the victims' families. Yet for Mercer, the shadows of doubt lingered like phantoms in the night. What drove Linden to seek solace in the pursuit of perfection? What demons haunted his soul, driving him to extinguish the light of others in his quest for absolution? The river whispered its timeless melody, a hymn of forgotten echoes carried downstream. In the precinct, amidst the hum of fluorescent lights, Mercer's gaze lingered on the chilling tomes that bore witness to a darkness lurking beneath the veneer of civility. In the tapestry of existence, she knew, the line between light and shadow blurred a reminder that in the heart of the ordinary, darkness dwells, waiting for its moment to claim its prize. Story 14, The Man Who Vanished. The cafe was his sanctuary, a place where time seemed to stand still. Each day he would enter quietly, taking his usual seat in the corner, a shadow among the bustling crowd. The barista knew his face well, but his true identity remained a mystery to all. He was a ghost in plain sight, a man without a name. Then one fateful day he didn't come. The regulars glanced around, searching for his familiar figure, but he was nowhere to be found. Concerned whispers filled the air as the police were called to investigate. What they discovered would plunge them into a mystery unlike any other. In his absence, a wallet was left behind, a lone artifact of his existence. Inside, a driver's license bore a face that was somehow both familiar and unknown. The details section left eerily blank. Security footage revealed his last moments in the cafe, a man known only as John Doe, walking in, sitting down, and then inexplicably vanishing into thin air. Detective Sarah Mercer delved deep into the enigma, her fingertips tracing the edges of the puzzle. The footage replayed before her, each frame holding a clue, a whisper of the truth that eluded her grasp. John Doe, an enigma wrapped in a navy coat, a messenger bag slung over his shoulder, a silent observer of the world. The investigation led Mercer down a rabbit hole of secrets and shadows. The wallet's contents revealed no answers, only more questions. A blank driver's license, credit cards with no ties to reality, a cryptic business card with a silent phone line. The pieces of the puzzle refused to fit together, leaving Mercer grasping at shadows. The cafe was haunted by his presence, by the absence that lingered in the air. The barista's memories offered no solace, only fragments of a life lived in solitude. John Doe, a man of mystery, a cipher waiting to be unraveled. Mercer's gaze fell upon the notebook left behind, its pages filled with cryptic symbols and enigmatic sketches. Each line a riddle, each drawing a puzzle waiting to be solved. The notebook whispered of unseen worlds, of hidden truths waiting to be revealed. As the investigation deepened, Mercer's gaze shifted to the mirror that hung in the cafe, a relic of a forgotten time. Its surface held a distortion, a ripple in reality that beckoned her closer. Behind it, a hidden space revealed a cache of secrets, a stack of wallets, each a mirror image of the next, a journal filled with the writings of a man lost to time. The journal spoke of experiments in time and space, of windows between worlds waiting to be opened. Mercer's mind spun with possibilities, with the realization that the cafe was more than it seemed, a nexus of realities waiting to be explored. The truth unfolded like a flower in bloom, revealing a tale of a brilliant physicist lost to his own experiments, a man who dared to breach the boundaries of existence. Daniel Weston, a name whispered in shadows, a ghost haunting the cafe's halls. In the final moments of the investigation, Mercer's world shifted, reality bending like a fragile thread. The mirror shattered, revealing a glimpse of a world beyond, a world where two versions of a man existed in harmony. And as the dust settled, as the echoes of the past faded into silence, Mercer knew that some mysteries were not meant to be solved. The cafe closed its doors, the building crumbling into dust, a monument to a man who defied the boundaries of reality. And so the man who vanished remained a mystery, a ghost in the machine of existence. Mercer, haunted by the echoes of the past, found solace in the words of a forgotten notebook, in the whispers of a world beyond the mirror's edge. The story of the man who didn't exist slipped into legend, a tale whispered in the shadows of a world that refused to be bound by reality. And as the night fell, as the stars blinked into existence, the cafe stood silent, a beacon in the darkness, a window to worlds unseen. Story 15. In the heart of the town, the old library stood silently, its fate sealed by the impending demolition. The workers toiled diligently, dismantling the structure brick by brick until a serendipitous moment occurred. Amidst the dust and debris, a laborer's foot caught on a hidden latch within a dusty bookshelf. With a gentle click, the bookshelf swung open like a secret door, revealing a passage veiled in shadows. The air within the hidden room was thick with the weight of time, untouched for decades as if preserving a long-forgotten secret. There in the center of the room stood a solitary chair, firmly bolted to the floor. The walls bore witness to a haunting message, etched repeatedly in a desperate plea: I am still here. The construction foreman, sensing an unsettling presence, swiftly contacted the authorities. What began as a routine demolition swiftly unraveled into a realm of darkness and mystery. Detective Morgan Walsh, a seasoned investigator with 2 decades of experience, entered the hidden room with a sense of foreboding. His flashlight pierced the darkness, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls adorned with a chilling message. Secure the scene, Walsh commanded, his voice echoing in the confined space. No one disturbs a single thing until forensics arrives. The library's history whispered of tragedies long buried. Once belonging to the esteemed Harrington family, the library had been gifted to the public following the enigmatic disappearance of their daughter, Rebecca. She had vanished without a trace during her final year of college, leaving behind a void that lingered in the community's memory. As forensic experts meticulously combed through the hidden room, they unearthed strands of hair and fibers embedded in the ancient chair. The walls, scarred with desperate scratches, concealed traces of blood and skin cells beneath layers of dust, a silent testimony to a struggle long forgotten. The chair was a restraint, the forensic analyst remarked, pointing to the weathered leather straps and bolt holes. Someone fought against their captivity with fervor. Detective Walsh delved deeper into the Harrington family's past, a gnawing suspicion tugging at his senses. The timing of the library's donation, mere weeks after Rebecca's disappearance, hinted at a sinister connection waiting to be unveiled. Further investigations unearthed a disturbing revelation: the contractor who installed the secret room had close ties to Maxwell Harrington, Rebecca's uncle and patriarch of the family. Financial records painted a clandestine portrait of exorbitant payments made to the contractor, shrouded in secrecy. Former library staff, interviewed in hushed tones, revealed Maxwell's peculiar fixation on the untouched section of the building. One elderly librarian recalled his solitary sojourns in the hidden chamber, veiled from prying eyes by the guise of historical preservation. The grim truth unfurled as forensic tests confirmed the DNA from the hidden room matched Rebecca's genetic profile. She had not fled, but had been ensnared behind the walls of her own family's legacy, a captive of blood ties turned sinister. Securing a warrant, detectives breached the sanctity of the Harrington estate, unearthing a leather-bound journal concealed within Maxwell's study. The journal chronicled a descent into madness, detailing Maxwell's twisted obsession with his niece and culminating in a chilling ultimatum. She knew too much, Maxwell confessed, his stoic facade crumbling under the weight of guilt. Rebecca threatened to expose my sins. I couldn't let her destroy everything we had built. The truth, raw and unyielding, unfurled in a storm of revelations. Maxwell had orchestrated Rebecca's captivity, a macabre dance of power and treachery that ended in tragedy. Her remains, entombed beneath the floorboards of the hidden room, bore witness to a life stolen in the name of family honor. As Maxwell faced justice, the Harrington family gathered in a somber tableau of grief and remorse. Rebecca's mother clutched her daughter's recovered bracelet, a tangible link to the past they could finally lay to rest. The library, once slated for destruction, now stood as a monument to a life extinguished too soon. Community members, drawn by a sense of melancholy reverence, adorned its entrance with floral tributes, honoring a soul that had languished in silence for far too long. In the quiet of the night, as shadows danced upon the walls of the hidden room, Rebecca's whispered plea echoed through the ages, a haunting reminder that some secrets can never truly be buried. Story 16. In the beginning, there was a mere flicker, a glitch in the baby monitor's transmission. The mother brushed it off as mere interference, but then the audio crackled and a voice softly murmured, "SHHH, go back to sleep." A shiver ran down her spine. Racing to her son's room, her heart thudded with fear, only to find the crib empty. The window remained shut, the door securely locked. The only oddity was a stuffed rabbit on the floor, its glossy black eyes fixed on her. Rebecca's screams echoed until her voice grew hoarse. The neighbors heard her cries and summoned emergency aid. Upon arrival, authorities discovered her cradling the stuffed rabbit, swaying on the nursery floor. Samuel, the 4-month-old infant, had vanished without a trace. Initial inquiries led nowhere, no signs of forced entry, the security system intact. The baby monitor footage showed nothing amiss until that eerie voice and static. Puzzled investigators pondered how an intruder could slip into a locked home, snatch a child, and leave without a trace save for a toy rabbit. Rebecca fell under suspicion. Her husband, Daniel, was away on business, their marriage strained since Samuel's birth. Medical records unveiled Rebecca's struggles with postpartum depression. Detectives noted her eerie composure, unsettling for a mother facing such loss. Gossip swirled through the community. A breakthrough emerged. Fibers on the nursery windowsill matched none from the household or family's attire. These fibers hinted at a rare climbing rope, hinting at an adept intruder scaling the nursery from outside. Focus shifted. Nearby security footage revealed a shadowy figure moving stealthily that night. A footprint in the garden soil matched a specialized boot used by climbers. Rebecca faded from the spotlight. Daniel returned, distressed. Unusual calluses on his hands, raised eyebrows. He mentioned newfound rock climbing to cope with stress. Financial records unveiled troubling details. Daniel secured a hefty insurance policy on Samuel. Multiple calls to an unknown number ceased before the abduction. Darker revelations followed. Daniel had a secret second family. As the probe deepened, the baby monitor emerged as a vital clue. Digital forensics uncovered hacking voices remotely transmitted. The whispered words hadn't originated in the nursery, but reached Rebecca's bedside receiver. Tracking the intrusion led to a basement, revealing Samuel alive in the care of Elaine. She surrendered, her gaze vacant. Elaine, Daniel's first wife, harbored deep grief from a past loss. Monitoring Daniel's life, she took Samuel as her own. Daniel denied guilt, but evidence spoke volumes. Climbing gear matched fibers and prints. Encrypted messages detailed the plan. During the trial, enhanced audio unveiled Daniel's presence that night. The jury swiftly convicted Daniel and Elaine for kidnapping and conspiracy. Rebecca and Samuel sought solace elsewhere. The case reshaped abduction investigations. Baby monitors faced scrutiny. Parents bolstered nursery security. Experts warned of tech-savvy crimes targeting the vulnerable. Samuel grew up unaware of his past. Rebecca kept the rabbit, a witness to that fateful night, hidden away. The monitor told the truth in unexpected ways. Story 17. The aged apartment exuded a sense of history, each creak and groan from the heating system telling a story of its own. The pipes whispered secrets as they rattled, a familiar melody to those who dwelled within, or so they thought until she heard it. A faint voice, distinct yet ethereal, dancing through the vents like a ghostly whisper. It wasn't the usual chatter of neighbors or the echoes of the city outside. This voice was different. It called her name, a gentle beckoning that sent shivers down her spine. Pressing her ear against the cold metal grate, she listened intently, her heart quickening with each passing moment. A rush of icy air brushed past her cheek, and then almost teasingly came the words, "I know you can hear me." Detective Morgan Shaw stood in silence at the heart of the empty apartment, her gaze fixed upon the rusted vent cover that had been pried open. Around her, the forensics team moved with precision, capturing every detail with their cameras as if preserving a haunting memory. The missing woman, Alina Reeves, had vanished without a trace until the foul odor caught the attention of the building manager. What they discovered hidden within the ventilation system defied all logic. She claimed to hear voices in the vents, Officer Patel recited from his notes, but the building dismissed her complaints, blaming it on the old heating system. Shaw knelt by the vent, examining the deep scratch marks around its edges. These marks were not made by any tool but by desperate, frantic hands trying to escape from within. The victim, Alina, was beloved a kind-hearted kindergarten teacher with a penchant for nurturing both plants and young minds. Her absence had set off alarms among her students, her family, and now the investigators. The sisters' interview revealed a troubling narrative. Alina had grown paranoid in the days leading up to her disappearance, convinced that unseen eyes watched her every move, that voices spoke to her through the very walls of her sanctuary. Shaw surveyed the apartment anew, seeing beyond the surface a meticulously made bed, a forgotten coffee mug, a chair positioned beneath the vent as if waiting for a listener. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, revealing a chilling picture. The forensic analysis unearthed unsettling clues. Fibers from Alina's favorite cardigan entwined in the vent, a mysterious fingerprint inside the cover, not belonging to the victim. However, the most unsettling revelation came from the audio recordings recovered from Alina's phone. Shaw sat in her car, rain drumming a somber symphony on the roof as she listened to the recordings in solitude. Alina's trembling voice echoed in the darkness, seeking validation from the unseen presence, only to be met with a haunting response, a whisper from the shadows. The history of the building painted a grim picture. Previous tenants had fled, citing strange occurrences within the walls. One had even suffered hallucinations attributed to carbon monoxide poisoning, claiming to hear voices beckoning from the vents. The superintendent, Harold Weber, appeared unfazed by the scrutiny, dismissing it as mere superstition. But Shaw sensed a shift in his demeanor when questioned about the occupants of apartment 4B, a subtle tension that spoke volumes. A hidden passage discovered in Alina's bathroom led to a labyrinthine network of maintenance tunnels concealed within the walls. There, a trove of belongings was found, a testament to a voyeur's obsession. Someone had been living in the shadows, watching, waiting, whispering. The investigation turned towards Weber, whose meticulously organized computer files revealed a disturbing truth. Recordings, photographs, a digital diary chronicling his twisted connection with Alina and others. His arrest was a quiet affair, his smile unsettling as if he held a secret that only the walls could understand. As the truth unraveled, a pattern emerged of fear, of manipulation, of lives intertwined by a predator lurking within the very structure meant to provide shelter. Weber's trial was swift, his calm demeanor in stark contrast to the horrors he had inflicted. Guilty on all counts, he spoke of whispers that transcended walls, of a bond with the building that would endure beyond his confinement. And as he was led away, his parting words lingered in Shaw's mind, a chilling reminder of the darkness that dwelled within. The apartment building now stands silent, a ghostly relic of its past. Despite attempts at renewal, whispers still echo through the vents, a haunting reminder of the souls that once resided within. The heating system groans its mournful tune, the pipes rattle like bones in a forgotten crypt. To those who dare to listen, the building whispers its secrets, a chilling lullaby that weaves through the walls, a melody of mystery and dread. And so the cycle continues, a spectral dance of shadows and echoes in the dead of night. Story 18. The woman entered the old house, the dust swirling in the musty air. Abandoned for years, its walls peeled like ancient scrolls, its furniture draped in ghostly sheets. Each step she took felt like a journey frozen in time, a silent dance with the past except for one peculiar detail. The doors, every door she opened led her back to the same room, the parlor, no matter how she tried to escape its grasp. It was a maze of familiarity and confusion, a puzzle with no solution. The only way out seemed to be the way she came in, but when she turned, the front door had vanished into thin air. The revelation of Morgan Pierce's lifeless body turned the once forgotten Victorian house into a crime scene shrouded in mystery. Detective Sarah Lind stood at the threshold, observing the forensic team moving through the dim interior like specters in the night. The house had gained a sinister reputation among the locals, a place where compasses spun wildly, where shadows whispered secrets. Now, it held secrets far more chilling than mere rumors. The initial examination indicates she passed approximately 3 days ago, the medical examiner murmured, his words barely audible in the heavy silence. Cause of death appears to be asphyxiation. Morgan was found seated in an antique chair in the parlor, her posture serene, as if patiently awaiting a visitor. No signs of struggle marred her peaceful expression, no hint of a battle fought. The scene exuded a haunting stillness that sent shivers down the spines of seasoned investigators. "Who discovered the body?" Lind inquired, her voice a mere whisper in the oppressive atmosphere. "A real estate agent showing the house to potential buyers," her partner replied. "They stumbled upon her, sitting there like a lost soul until they realized she was beyond earthly help." The house had stood empty since the passing of its previous owner, Eleanor Blackwood, nearly 5 years prior. Legal disputes had left it neglected, unwanted, a relic of the past fading into obscurity, except for the curious and the brave seeking thrills in its decaying embrace. Morgan Pierce, a young scholar of 26, had been drawn to the house in her research on architectural anomalies. Known for her meticulous nature and unwavering curiosity, she couldn't resist the allure of a place that defied logic and reason. Her roommate reported her missing 2 days ago, Lind reflected, her gaze scanning over her notes. Morgan spoke of visiting the house where souls wander for her studies. The investigation unveiled Morgan's frequent visits to the house leading up to her demise. Her journal entries spoke of strange echoes, chilling drafts, and doors that played tricks on the mind. In her final notes, she mentioned plans to document what she cryptically referred to as spatial enigmas, yet the equipment she intended to use had vanished without a trace. During the autopsy, an unexpected detail emerged: a rare alkaloid detected in Morgan's system, a substance linked to shamanic rituals known to distort reality and induce vivid visions. She wasn't one for recreational substances, her partner insisted during questioning. Morgan wouldn't jeopardize her work with such reckless behavior. Deleted messages retrieved from Morgan's phone unveiled cryptic conversations with a mysterious individual who shared her fascination with the house, someone who claimed to hold the key to its enigmatic past. "The house retains memories of its past," one message hinted. "It seeks understanding." The investigation led Lind to Adam Reeves, an architectural historian entangled in Morgan's research. His knowledge of rare spatial phenomena had captivated her, blurring the lines between academic curiosity and personal intrigue. When questioned, Reeves expressed genuine grief over Morgan's untimely end. "The house is more than it seems," he confessed. "The original architect wove illusions and distortions into its very structure, a labyrinth of secrets waiting to be unraveled. Morgan believed there was a hidden truth, a reality beyond our own perceptions. However, Reeves possessed a solid alibi for the time of Morgan's passing, a fact corroborated by security footage from a distant university symposium where he had been lecturing. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a descendant of a leaner Blackwood living abroad. Upon contact, he disclosed a dark family secret buried for generations. "My grandmother wasn't the sole Blackwood to perish within those walls," he divulged. "Others met their end in the parlor, their faces serene, their souls claimed by the house's grip. It was known as the claiming within our family." Handed over were journals spanning decades, chronicling deaths attributed to natural causes but bearing a sinister pattern. Those who spent time within the house eventually succumbed to a force dubbed the Influence, a malevolent presence entwined with the very fabric of the Victorians' essence. A thorough search of the property unveiled a concealed compartment behind the parlor fireplace, harboring Morgan's missing equipment alongside a trove of ancient artifacts. Among them stood a carved figure, weathered by the touch of generations, embodying a deity linked to liminal spaces, thresholds between worlds. Traces of the alkaloid found in Morgan's system adorn the relics, hinting at a connection to her tragic fate. The investigation took a chilling turn as forensic analysis hinted at an unidentified presence within the house at the time of Morgan's demise. Partial fingerprints, alien to Morgan or any known visitors, were discovered on doorknobs throughout the labyrinthine halls. 3 weeks into the inquiry, Adam Reeves was discovered lifeless in his residence, mirroring Morgan's peaceful posture, the same alkaloid staining his system. Clutched in his hand was a mysterious key, a key that unlocked the hidden chamber within the Victorian, a chamber housing secrets beyond mortal comprehension. In his final correspondence, preserved like a testament to the unknown, Reeves inscribed his revelation: "The house doesn't bind you physically, it ensnares your perception." Morgan was correct, the doors lead where they always have, but a force distorts your understanding. Once you grasp the truth, escape beckons. However, by then, you may no longer wish to depart. The case remains unresolved, labeled as suspicious deaths under investigation. The Victorian stands condemned, a forbidden relic cordoned off by authorities. Whispers persist of phantom lights dancing within its confines on certain moonlit nights, of souls venturing in but never emerging. Some whisper that the house claims those who delve too deeply into its mysteries, while others believe Morgan and Reeves unearthed a force ancient and potent, existing within the boundaries of reality and illusion. The truth lingers like a shadow in the abandoned corridors, as elusive as an exit in a house where all doors lead back to the beginning, trapping wanderers in a dance of perception and destiny. Story 19. It arrived in the mail, wrapped in a plain envelope with no return address. A single brass key worn with time. The homeowner didn't recognize it, but something about it felt familiar. When she slid it into every lock she owned, nothing turned. It wasn't hers. But when she placed it on the coffee table, the old grandfather clock in the hallway let out a single, hollow chime despite having been broken for years. Sarah Miller reported the strange occurrence to authorities after finding the mysterious key. What seemed like an odd mishap soon unraveled into one of the most disturbing criminal investigations the quiet suburban neighborhood had ever witnessed. The responding officer initially dismissed her concerns. A key in the mail, perhaps a mistake, he suggested, but Sarah insisted something felt wrong. The officer reluctantly took the key as evidence, mostly to appease her, placing it in a small evidence bag that would later become central to a sprawling investigation. Detective Robert Harmon received the case file during the morning briefing. A veteran investigator with a special victims unit, he had developed an intuition for cases that would evolve beyond their seemingly innocuous beginnings. The brass key sat on his desk, unremarkable yet somehow unsettling. Background checks revealed Sarah had no criminal history. A retired high school English teacher, widowed, with 2 adult children living across the country. Nothing suspicious in her financial records, phone logs, or social media. She appeared to be exactly what she claimed, an innocent recipient of something strange. The forensic team found no fingerprints on the key besides Sarah's. The envelope yielded nothing except a generic postmark from the regional distribution center. No DNA, no trace evidence. The key itself was a standard Schlage, available at any hardware store, though well-worn and at least several years old. The breakthrough came unexpectedly when Detective Harmon decided to run the key's unique bidding pattern through the department database. A cold case from 7 years prior had documented an identical key pattern belonging to a storage unit where investigators had found blood-stained carpet, cutting tools, and photographs of unidentified women. The original investigation had stalled without sufficient evidence to identify a suspect. Harmon pulled the dusty case files. The detective who had worked the case had since retired. The storage unit had been rented under a false identity, paid in cash. Surveillance footage had long been overwritten. The evidence collected had yielded partial DNA samples, but no matches in any criminal database. The photographs recovered from the storage unit showed 5 different women, all appearing unconscious. Only 3 had been identified during the original investigation, all reported missing but never found. Their cases remained open, classified as suspected homicides without bodies. Sarah Miller recognized none of the women when shown the photographs. She grew increasingly anxious as the investigation proceeded, installing new locks and a security system in her home. The question lingered: why had someone sent her this key? Harmon ordered a fresh analysis of the original evidence using newer techniques. The partial DNA sample was expanded and run through genealogical databases. This yielded a distant familial match, a second cousin twice removed from the suspect. Working backward through family trees, investigators narrowed their focus to Harold Jenkins, who had lived 2 streets away from Sarah Miller until moving away approximately 6 years ago. His current whereabouts were unknown. Further investigation revealed Jenkins had been a substitute teacher at the same school where Sarah taught, though they had minimal documented interaction. His employment records showed scattered work history, long unexplained gaps, and frequent relocations. His former residence yielded nothing unusual upon inspection. Neighbors described him as quiet, unremarkable, someone who kept to himself, the common refrain that often follows revelations about predators hiding in plain sight. The big question remained unanswered: why send the key now? Why to Sarah Miller? Harmon theorized it might be a trophy, a warning, or perhaps a macabre invitation. The search for Jenkins intensified. His driver's license hadn't been renewed, no credit card activity, no tax returns. The digital breadcrumbs people typically leave behind were conspicuously absent, suggesting an intentional effort to remain untraceable. The true horror of the case emerged when authorities investigated a small cabin registered to Jenkins' deceased mother. Beneath the weathered wooden floorboards, investigators discovered a concealed room accessible only through a trapdoor. Inside, meticulously organized shelves held dozens of identical brass keys, each with a name and date engraved on a small attached tag. 5 keys corresponded to the women from the photographs. The remaining keys, 27 in total, presented a horrifying implication of additional victims previously unknown to authorities. Buried behind the cabin, forensic teams recovered human remains. The excavation continued for weeks as investigators unearthed multiple bodies in varying states of decomposition. Sarah received round-the-clock protection as the manhunt for Jenkins expanded nationwide. Behavioral analysts suggested the key represented a twisted invitation, Jenkins selecting Sarah as someone to appreciate his work. The press dubbed him the Keymaster, a name that spread rapidly across national headlines. Fear permeated the community as residents questioned how such horror had existed among them undetected. Detection dogs tracked the scent from the cabin into the surrounding wilderness. Search teams combed dense forest areas. Thermal imaging drones scanned terrain too dangerous for ground teams. The manhunt became one of the largest in regional history. A wildlife photographer hiking in remote woods captured an image of someone matching Jenkins' description. The grainy photograph showed a bearded man with hollow eyes carrying a backpack, heading deeper into the wilderness. Authorities closed in on the area, establishing a perimeter. Tactical teams navigated difficult terrain while psychological profilers predicted Jenkins would not surrender. They anticipated he might have prepared for this contingency with hidden supplies and escape routes. The final confrontation occurred when a patrol officer encountered Jenkins attempting to cross a river. Rather than surrender, Jenkins retreated to higher ground, where he barricaded himself in an abandoned fire observation tower. Negotiators attempted communication for hours without response. When tactical teams finally breached the tower, they found Jenkins dead from a self-inflicted wound. Beside his body lay a journal containing detailed accounts of his crimes, alongside a single brass key identical to the one Sarah had received. Inside a waterproof container, investigators discovered additional evidence, including photographs, maps marking burial locations, and personal effects taken from victims, a methodically preserved record of atrocities spanning nearly a decade. The journal's final entry addressed Sarah directly. "You never noticed me, but I noticed everything about you. The key opens nothing because what I wanted to give you cannot be unlocked with metal, only with recognition. Now everyone will remember my name." The subsequent investigation identified 32 victims in total. Families who had spent years wondering about missing loved ones finally received answers, though the closure came with the unbearable weight of confirmed tragedy. Sarah never returned to her home, unable to reconcile the horror that had brushed so close to her ordinary life. The grandfather clock that had mysteriously chimed was examined and found to contain a small wireless receiver Jenkins had been watching, waiting for the moment she received his gift. The case remains one of the most disturbing examples of predatory behavior hiding beneath a veneer of normalcy. Psychological researchers continue studying Jenkins' writings, seeking insights to identify similar offenders before they act. And somewhere in an evidence locker, a collection of brass keys sits in silent testimony to lives cut short, each key opening nothing, yet unlocking a devastating truth about the darkness that sometimes hides behind unremarkable facades. Story 20, The Enigmatic Doll. In the dimly lit attic, obscured by a worn, tattered blanket, a discovery awaited Sarah and Michael, a porcelain doll of exquisite craftsmanship, its ancient features captivating and haunting. With painted blue eyes that seemed to see beyond the present, the doll exuded an eerie aura of mystery and timelessness. Unfamiliar with its origins, the couple initially dismissed the doll as a forgotten relic of the past, just another forgotten piece of history tucked away in the attic's shadows. Little did they know that this doll held secrets far more profound than mere antiquity. As night descended and the world outside fell into a hushed stillness, a subtle unease crept into the air of the old Victorian house. The silence grew heavy, an unseen tension weaving through the rooms like a hidden thread. And when morning light filtered through the windows, the doll was no longer nestled in the attic's depths. It had silently moved to the foot of Sarah and Michael's bed, a silent sentinel in the darkness. Sarah and Michael, drawn to the house's enigmatic allure despite whispers of its troubled past, found themselves unwittingly entwined in a tale that transcended time. Detective Rachel Winters, a meticulous investigator with a keen eye for detail, was called to the scene of a chilling crime that defied logic and reason. In the master bedroom, a macabre tableau unfolded before the detective's eyes. The female victim posed unnaturally, limbs contorted at unnatural angles, her eyes wide with fear. Nearby, the male victim lay as if in desperate flight, trapped in a frozen moment of terror. As Detective Winters meticulously catalogued the scene, she noted the deliberate precision of the victim's positioning, a chilling resemblance to dolls carefully arranged in a sinister display. The house whispered of secrets long buried, its walls holding echoes of past tragedies that refused to fade. The investigation unfurled like a tapestry of shadows and light, each thread leading deeper into a labyrinth of whispers and half-truths. Neighbors spoke of spectral sightings, a shadow flitting past a window, a child's laughter echoing through empty halls in the dead of night. Forensic analysis unveiled a disquieting truth: traces of antique fabrics, tiny fragments of a bygone era, clung to the crime scene with ghostly persistence. The absence of fingerprints, the lack of any tangible evidence of an intruder, each puzzle piece added to the growing sense of unease that gripped the investigation. Delving into the house's murky past, Detective Winters uncovered a pattern of tragedy woven through the years. Previous owners met mysterious ends, their fates intertwined with the house's dark legacy. A dollmaker's haunting tale emerged from the shadows, a story of grief and obsession that transcended the boundaries of time. The doll, an enigmatic figure at the heart of the mystery, bore witness to a legacy of sorrow and loss. Its porcelain form held secrets that defied comprehension, its presence a harbinger of unseen forces at play. As the investigation spiraled into the realm of the supernatural, a distant relative of the dollmaker revealed whispered family lore of arcane rituals, of spirits bound to objects, of dolls crafted from more than mere porcelain and cloth. With each revelation, the case slipped further into the realm of the inexplicable. No conventional solution could encompass the tangled web of secrets that shrouded the house and its tragic inhabitants. And then, in a twist of fate that defied explanation, the doll vanished, slipping through the cracks of reality like a wisp of smoke. Detective Winters, left bewildered by the inexplicable events that unfolded, retired from the force, haunted by the mysteries left unsolved. The house, now a silent sentinel of forgotten tales, changed hands once more, its history a whispered rumor among those who dared to speak of its shadowed past. The attic, once a sanctuary for secrets long buried, remained silent, its depths concealing the enigma of the vanished doll. And on quiet nights, when the world held its breath and the moon cast its silver glow upon the house's weathered facade, whispers of a child's laughter would drift through the air, a ghostly echo of a past that lingered still, waiting to be unraveled. Story 21. In the stillness of the night, a pocket dial echoed through the empty space, a mere whisper of static and muffled sounds that almost went unnoticed. But then a voice emerged from the chaos, cutting through like a sharp blade. It was a woman, her words laden with frantic urgency. "He's here." And then a heavy silence descended, swallowing her words whole. The call originated from an abandoned house, a relic frozen in time, its walls echoing with secrets of the past. Detective Morgan Reed found herself drawn to the mystery that unfolded before her. The house belonged to the Sullivans, a family torn apart by tragedy. A fire had ravaged the West Wing, forcing them to flee, leaving the house to decay in solitude. As Morgan stood in the dust-covered kitchen, her gaze fixed on the phone that sat innocently on the counter, its screen glowing faintly. The call had been made mere minutes ago, yet the house bore no signs of intrusion, no disturbances in its quiet slumber. The phone became a riddle wrapped in enigma, a relic from the past reaching out to the present. Detective Reed played back the recording, each whisper sending shivers down her spine. It was a voice filled with desperation, with fear, with an impossibility that defied logic. A background check revealed a chilling truth. The number belonged to Catherine Sullivan, the daughter of the house, long gone from this world after a tragic accident. How could her phone be calling from a place she had left behind in sorrow? The investigation unfolded like a dark tapestry, each thread leading to more questions than answers. The forensic team scoured the house, searching for clues that eluded them. No fingerprints, no footprints, only the echo of a voice from beyond the grave. The recording became a haunting melody, replaying those 11 seconds of static and breaths, a spectral echo of a life cut short. Voice analysis confirmed the unthinkable Catherine's voice, with a certainty that sent chills down their spines, speaking from the void of the past. Interviews with those who knew Catherine unveiled layers of her life, her struggles, her relationships. Each revelation peeled back the facade of normalcy, revealing a darkness that lurked beneath the surface. And then a breakthrough, a journal hidden in the depths of her past, a testament to her fears, her hopes, her silent screams for help. The journal spoke of a love turned sour, of a man consumed by possessiveness, by jealousy, by a darkness that craved control. Mark Jennings, the man at the center of it all, stood under the harsh light of suspicion. His alibi crumbled under scrutiny, his lies unraveling like threads in a tapestry of deceit. But still, the truth remained elusive, a specter haunting the shadows. A buried phone unearthed a truth long buried, a tale of betrayal, of manipulation, of a life snuffed out in the darkness of a twisted mind. Catherine's voice echoed from beyond the grave, her words painting a portrait of a life stolen, of a soul silenced. As the walls closed in on Mark, his facade crumbled, revealing the monster beneath. His crimes stretched beyond the boundaries of comprehension, staining the lives of those he touched with a darkness that lingered like a shadow. And in the end, justice prevailed not through the whispers of the dead, but through the relentless pursuit of truth, of closure, of a reckoning long overdue. The phone from the abandoned house now rests in the evidence locker, a silent witness to the horrors that unfolded within its walls. The story of Catherine Sullivan lives on, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, to the echoes of a voice that refuses to be silenced. In the quiet of the night, officers swear they hear a faint ring, a phantom echo that lingers like a ghostly whisper, a reminder that even in death, the truth will find a way to speak. Story 22. The aging apartment exuded an aura of peculiarities. Its pipes groaned in protest, its floorboards whispered secrets with every step. Yet the newest tenant, Sarah, sensed a difference in the nocturnal symphony that enveloped her. The footsteps above were too deliberate, too rhythmic to be dismissed as mere settling noises. Curiously, these phantom footfalls echoed from the ceiling, despite Sarah residing on the topmost floor. One fateful night, emboldened by a surge of courage, Sarah tentatively rapped on the ceiling with a broomstick, daring to challenge the unseen intruder. The sound ceased abruptly, plunging the space into an eerie silence. Then, a single knock reverberated from within the ceiling, sending shivers down Sarah's spine. In the secluded confines of her thoughts, Sarah opted to keep the unnerving incident to herself, attributing the sounds to the idiosyncrasies of the aging building or perhaps a stray creature exploring the attic. Night after night, the methodical footsteps persisted, tracing enigmatic paths across her ceiling in the cloak of darkness. Sarah adapted, resorting to cranking up the volume of her television, donning headphones to bed, anything to drown out the haunting echoes that plagued her solitude. Detective Morris was drawn into the enigmatic tale when a maintenance worker stumbled upon a clandestine crawlspace during routine repairs. Removing a section of drywall near Sarah's unit to address a water leak, the worker unveiled a concealed passage that defied the building's blueprints. Illuminated by a flashlight's beam, the secret chamber revealed a makeshift living quarter adorned with remnants of existence, a trail of food wrappers, discarded water bottles, a soiled blanket, and a weathered notebook. Swiftly, the building superintendent alerted the authorities, summoning Detective Morris and his astute partner, Detective Rivera, to the scene. The maintenance worker, visibly shaken, reiterated his unsettling discovery, muttering about a hidden watcher dwelling within the walls. The notebook chronicled intricate observations of Sarah Coleman, her routines, her interactions, her very essence. Initially penned with precision, the narrative devolved into a frenzy of erratic scribbles and cryptic symbols, culminating in a chilling declaration. The subject no longer responds to my signals. She has chosen to ignore me. No one ignores me. Forensic specialists meticulously combed the concealed passages, unearthing fingerprints that eluded identification in conventional databases. The labyrinthine network of hidden thoroughfares intertwined with the building's structure, some dating back decades, culminating in viewing apertures strategically positioned within Sarah's abode. Current residents professed ignorance of any anomalies, while former inhabitants whispered tales of unease, the sensation of being scrutinized, inexplicable disturbances prompting swift departures shrouded in silence. A breakthrough emerged as microscopic blood spatter surfaced in one of the concealed recesses, linking the DNA to Martin Weaver, a past tenant who had vanished mysteriously. Revisiting Martin's disappearance, Detective Morris unearthed a series of unsettling encounters, a clash with a reclusive neighbor named Edward, followed by Martin's abrupt disappearance and Edward's subsequent vanishing act, leaving no trace behind. Delving further into Edward's shadowy past, investigators uncovered a pattern of transient habitation, a trail of top-floor residences left behind like forgotten echoes. A neighbor's recollection painted Edward as a figure cloaked in intensity, fixated on solitude and the pursuit of unbroken stillness. Tracking Edward's movements to a secluded cabin nestled in remote wilderness, the investigators stumbled upon a chilling tableau photographs of unsuspecting residents, intricate schematics of ventilation systems, and harrowing diaries cataloging the maintenance of the habitat. In a grim revelation, a corkboard adorned with missing persons reports bore witness to Edward's macabre legacy. 6 souls vanished without a trace, their final resting places concealed beneath the earth's embrace. As the magnitude of Edward's atrocities unfurled, Detective Morris was haunted by the realization that Sarah remained a missing piece in the sinister puzzle, her fate entwined with the specter of Edward's clandestine existence. The manhunt for the elusive Edward, now identified as Edward Mercer, a craftsman of hidden realms within the mundane, pressed on with fervor. Thermal scans of Sarah's domicile yielded no signs of current occupancy within the walls, casting a shadow of uncertainty over her fate. The enigmatic disappearance of Sarah Coleman resonated beyond the confines of her apartment, echoing across state lines in a solemn chorus of unanswered questions. As the authorities issued warnings to vigilant building managers regarding covert modifications and concealed chambers, Detective Morris found himself ensnared by a haunting image, the specter of Sarah, ensnared in a web of hidden passageways, her existence teetering on the brink of obscurity. In moments of solitude, the detective cast wary glances at his own ceiling, attuned to the symphony of silence that enveloped him, pondering the unseen listeners lurking in the shadows. Story 23. The apartment had been vacant for months, a silent witness to the passage of time. When the new tenants crossed its threshold, they expected nothing more than dust dancing in the sunlight and the faint echoes of forgotten memories. But as they explored, one door stood resolute, refusing to yield to their gentle persuasion. It was a closet, shrouded in mystery, locked from within as if guarding its secrets with unwavering determination. The landlord, a man with nervous hands and a troubled gaze, finally forced the stubborn door open, revealing a sight that sent shivers down their spines. The walls bore witness to a silent struggle, etched with deep, uneven scratches that spoke of desperation and fear. And in the shadowed corner, an old flip phone lay dormant, its screen illuminated by a single unread message that whispered of unseen truths. Detective Morgan Shaw, with her keen eyes and unshakable resolve, recognized the gravity of the scene before her. It wasn't the blood or the violence that made her skin prickle with unease. It was the silent plea of those scratch marks, a haunting testament to a soul trapped in darkness, fighting against invisible chains. "We need forensics here immediately," she said to her partner, Officer Reed, who was already capturing the haunting marks on camera, "and bring me the records of the previous tenants." The message on the phone, stark against the dim surroundings, simply stated, "I know what you did." As the pieces of the puzzle slowly fell into place, a chilling tale of deceit and suffering emerged from the shadows of the empty apartment. The previous tenant, Emma Caldwell, had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and silent screams etched into the walls. Forensics uncovered a chilling revelation: blood samples embedded in the scratches, most belonging to Emma herself, but two others defying logic. One remained a mystery, while the other belonged to a man long declared dead, his presence a ghostly echo from the past. As the investigation deepened, a web of darkness unfurled, connecting Emma's disappearance to another missing soul, Lynette Porter, a woman lost to the shadows 3 years prior. Their stories intertwined, woven together by a man who thrived on control and suffering, his twisted desires leaving a trail of broken lives in his wake. Derek Mercer, the mastermind behind the tangled web of deceit, had orchestrated a macabre dance of manipulation and fear, his victims mere pawns in his twisted game of power and dominance. The hunt for Mercer spanned across boundaries, his trail of darkness leading to a remote property where Lynette Porter languished in the shadows, a mere shadow of her former self, a living testament to Mercer's insatiable thirst for control. As the truth unraveled in the harsh light of justice, Mercer's calm facade cracked, revealing a darkness that chilled even the most hardened hearts. His crimes laid bare for the world to see, a tapestry of horror woven from the threads of broken souls and shattered dreams. And as the gavel fell, sealing Mercer's fate in a prison of his own making, a sense of closure settled upon the haunted apartment, its walls bearing witness to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unspeakable darkness. The echoes of the past slowly faded into the stillness of the night, a whisper of hope rising from the ashes of despair, a reminder that even in the darkest of places, light can still find a way to shine. Story 24. In a neighborhood where whispers lingered like the evening mist, there stood a house untouched by life for years. The tale woven by the neighbors spoke of a young woman named Elise Winters, who vanished without a trace, leaving behind a void that seemed to seep into the very walls of the house. When new tenants dared to breach its silent threshold, they encountered a bedroom locked tight, as if guarding secrets of its own. With a creak and a groan, they forced the door ajar, revealing a space frozen in time. The air hung heavy with the weight of neglect, dust dancing in the dim light. A bed neatly made, a mirror devoid of blemish, and a single candle, its flame long extinguished, weeping wax tears upon the desk. And there, upon the worn pages of a notebook, the ink still wet with urgency, Elise's voice echoed from the past. Detective Morgan, a shadow in the stillness, traced Elise's words with a careful hand, unraveling a story of deceit and desperation. The notebook bore witness to Elise's final moments, her fear etched into the paper as a silent plea for justice. As the room whispered its secrets to the forensic team, the truth began to unfurl like a delicate flower blooming in the darkness. Elise, a paralegal entangled in a web of corporate deceit, had unearthed a truth too dangerous to ignore. Her meticulous notes, her trembling pen, all led to a revelation that shook the foundations of power. Through the looking glass of hidden documents and clandestine recordings, the nefarious dealings of those in high places came to light. Vincent Harriman, a man of influence and malice, stood at the center of the storm, his hands stained with blood, both literal and metaphorical. The walls of his fortress crumbled as Elise's legacy whispered through the cracks. In the chamber of shadows where justice lay dormant, a key waited to unlock the vault of secrets. A flash drive, a keyhole to a world of corruption, exposed the sins of the powerful and the price paid by the innocent. Through twists and turns, through hidden passages and dark revelations, the truth emerged from the depths of silence. Harriman's mask of innocence shattered, revealing the face of a killer who thought himself untouchable. In the dance of light and shadow, in the echo of a life extinguished too soon, Elise's voice found its crescendo. The courtroom, a stage for justice long delayed, bore witness to the reckoning of a man who believed himself beyond reproach. As the gavel fell, as the echoes of Elise's courage reverberated through the halls of power, a sense of closure settled upon the house that time had forgotten. The new tenants, wise to the legacy of its walls, chose to let it slumber undisturbed. Yet in the stillness of the night, a flicker of light danced in the upstairs window, a beacon of remembrance for a woman who fought against the darkness. Elise's spirit, a silent guardian of truth, lingered in the shadows, a testament to the power of one voice against the storm. And so the house stood as a silent sentinel, a monument to the truth that even in the darkest corners, justice will find its way home. As the stars whispered secrets to the night sky, Elise's story echoed in the hushed whispers of those who dared to listen, a lullaby of justice served, a tale of a woman who refused to be silenced. Story 25. In the quiet stillness of the night, a tale unfolded within the walls of a Victorian-era home that Michael and Sarah Klein never imagined they would unearth. The house, with its ornate woodwork and high ceilings whispering of bygone tales, beckoned them with a charm that seemed to mask a hidden mystery. It began innocently enough, a mere water stain catching Sarah's eye in the master bedroom. What appeared to be peeling wallpaper soon revealed a secret buried beneath the layers of time. As they peeled back the old paper, a name emerged: Alina Winters, scrawled repeatedly in ink across the wall in a frenzied script that spoke of desperation. Questions swirled in the air as Michael and Sarah delved into the enigma of Alina Winters. Their online search led them to a haunting discovery, a missing persons case from decades past, with a photograph that bore an uncanny resemblance to the woman who had sold them the house, Margaret Cavendish. The pieces of the puzzle seemed scattered, yet connected in a way that defied logic. The more they uncovered, the more the mystery deepened, drawing them into a web of intrigue that blurred the lines between past and present. With each passing day, their home became a nexus of investigation, the walls holding secrets that whispered in the shadows. Sarah's determination to unravel the truth led them down a path fraught with uncertainty, each revelation peeling back another layer of the haunting truth. The retired detective's voice crackled over the phone, recounting the cold case of Alina Winters, a story of disappearance without a trace. The link to Margaret Cavendish, the elusive previous owner of their home, sent shivers down their spines, unraveling a tale of identity theft and fractured realities. As forensics teams combed through the walls and hidden spaces of the house, the truth began to take shape, weaving a narrative of obsession and delusion. The discovery of hidden identities and a chilling connection to a psychiatric patient named Rebecca Eldridge painted a portrait of a mind fractured beyond repair. The excavation of the backyard unearthed long-buried secrets, bringing closure to a family long haunted by the specter of Alina Winters' disappearance. And as Rebecca Eldridge, masquerading as Margaret Cavendish, was apprehended, the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place. The names on the wall, once a cryptic message of guilt and obsession, now stood as a testament to the darkness that lurked within the walls of their dream home. Michael and Sarah, unwitting players in a tragic drama, found themselves caught in a tale that transcended time, a story of loss, madness, and the chilling truth that some mysteries are never meant to be solved. And as the night settled over the house, a sense of peace descended, the whispers of the past finally fading into the gentle embrace of sleep. Story 26. The town kept silent about the house nestled at the edge of the woods. It stood solitary, its windows cloaked in darkness, its porch weary from the weight of time. No one laid claim to it, no one could recollect its origins. But when a band of hikers strayed too near, they stumbled upon something peculiar, names etched into the wooden planks, carved deep like ominous messages. At the base of the list, fresh and untouched, was a name unfamiliar to all. Until one among them murmured, voice quivering, "That's mine." One eerie night a call came in. Dispatch logged it as a routine trespassing incident. The voice on the other end belonged to Mason Wright, the foremost hiker who uncovered his name carved into the abandoned abode. The responding officers anticipated mere teenage mischief, perhaps a jest among comrades. What they encountered defied all logic. Detective Sarah Keller arrived as twilight draped the forest. Her flashlight pierced the shadows, casting light upon the weathered front of the structure. The names 27 in total cascaded vertically down the eastern wall. Some had faded with time, nearly imperceptible against the dull wood. Others remained crisp, as if freshly engraved. And at the bottom, Mason Wright, the incision still tinged with the scent of sawdust. "I've never set foot here before," Mason insisted, his breath forming mist in the chill air. "I can't fathom how anyone would know my name. The inquiry commenced with background checks on each listed name. The findings sent shivers through the detective squad. Every name belonged to an individual reported missing over the past 4 decades. Some cases had gone cold, others remained open. Yet all shared a chilling similarity: the individuals had vanished while hiking alone. Forensic experts documented each carving, scrutinizing the depths, techniques, and weathering patterns. The oldest name, Rebecca Hansen, aligned with a missing persons case from 37 years prior. The case files recounted a young woman who ventured into those woods and never returned. Search parties uncovered naught but a lone hiking boot beside a stream. Detective Keller extensively interviewed Mason. His narrative held steady. He bore no ties to the area beyond this hiking excursion with 4 college companions. They had selected the trail at random, based on an online suggestion. Nothing in his background linked him to any of the other names adorning the wall. The focus of the investigation pivoted to Mason's comrades. Emily Chen, the group's photographer, presented images captured during their hike. Upon reviewing the snapshots, analysts discerned something unsettling. A blurred figure loomed in the background of 3 distinct photos. The silhouette resembled a tall, slender man, perpetually obscured by trees. "We never spotted anyone else on the trail," Emily asserted. "We would have remembered." Detective Keller sanctioned a search of the house's interior. The edifice appeared forsaken, dust veiled every surface, furniture lay in disarray. Yet in the cellar, officers stumbled upon a disturbing sight. Personal effects belonging to the missing hikers were meticulously arranged on wooden shelves. Watches, backpacks, cameras, wallets, each labeled with a corresponding name from the exterior wall. The forensic team worked methodically, cataloging every item. Beneath ultraviolet light, bloodstains materialized on the concrete floor, years of splotches that someone had endeavored to erase. Ground-penetrating radar unveiled no bodies beneath the house, yet cadaver dogs signaled repeatedly near the densest part of the forest at the rear of the property. As the inquiry intensified, Detective Keller observed peculiar conduct from Mason Wright. He began recounting bizarre incidents: whispers outside his residence, footprints in fresh snow leading to his door but not away, figures observing from the street. The department assigned an officer for his protection, yet Mason's paranoia escalated. The breakthrough came when researchers unearthed land records concealed in county archives. The house had been owned by a reclusive hunter named Victor Blackwood. Neighbors scarcely glimpsed him, recounting brief encounters with an unsettlingly tall, gaunt man who shunned conversation. Blackwood vanished without a trace 15 years prior, his disappearance never formally probed. Detective Keller secured a warrant to delve deeper into the encompassing forest. The search party unearthed a network of rudimentary hunting blinds, strategically stationed along popular hiking routes. Within one, they stumbled upon a journal brimming with meticulous observations, depictions of hikers, their paths, gear, and routines. The script matched samples from Victor Blackwood's scant existing documents. The journal entries grew progressively disturbing. Early pages delineated hunting strategies for animals. Later entries depicted humans as prey, their behaviors, vulnerabilities, and methods for their capture. The final pages contained intricate accounts of tracking each victim on the wall, complete with elaborate descriptions of his selection process. A manhunt for Blackwood mobilized across multiple jurisdictions. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging scoured the forest. Tactical teams meticulously combed every crevice and cavern, yet no trace of the suspect surfaced. Mason Wright ceased answering calls. Officers dispatched to his dwelling discovered the entrance ajar, the rooms vacant. Upon his chamber wall, freshly engraved, was a solitary line: "The hunter becomes the hunted." The quest for Mason persisted for weeks to no avail. Then, during a secondary sweep of Blackwood's residence, forensic technicians unearthed a ghastly revelation. Concealed behind a false partition in the basement, they unearthed a small workshop housing woodworking tools, jars of wood preservatives, and a freshly carved wooden piece bearing a new name not yet affixed to the exterior wall. Detective Keller immediately recognized the name. It belonged to the chief forensic technician who had processed the house during the initial investigation. The technician had called in sick that morning and could not be reached by phone. Authorities established an unbroken surveillance perimeter around the house. Camera systems documented every approach. Motion sensors monitored for intrusions. The trap was set. 3 nights later, sensors triggered an alert. Security footage captured a figure emerging from the forest, unbelievably tall and slender, moving with an unnatural grace. The figure advanced directly towards the house, seemingly unperturbed by the surveillance. As tactical teams closed in, the cameras briefly lost connection. Upon reconnection, the figure had vanished. The house remains under constant watch to this day. Mason Wright and the forensic technician were never located. The investigation persists, with fresh resources allocated as similar disappearances surface in other wooded realms. The names on the wall have transformed into a legend among law enforcement. Some officers refuse to utter them aloud, others avoid the case altogether. And local hikers now steer clear of the house, fearful that discussing it may somehow add their names to that dreadful list, the names no one utters. Story 27, The Enigmatic House. The realtor's listing made no mention of a basement. The blueprints offered no clue to its existence. Yet, as the family unraveled the worn carpet, they uncovered a hidden door underneath. A door with a weathered handle that resisted their efforts until 3 of them combined their strength to pry it open. A musty breath of air rose to meet them, carrying the heavy scent of damp earth. Steps descended into darkness, beckoning them downward. Anticipating a storage space, they were met with a solitary chair bathed in the gentle sway of a single light bulb above. And on the wall behind, a series of photographs, familiar faces, captured within their own home. The Mercer family had embraced the quiet suburb in the grip of winter, the darkness lingering as skeletal trees reached out against the cold sky. The aging 2-story home, with its time-worn facade and creaking floors, exuded character and whispered stories of the past. Yet the depth of history concealed within its walls eluded their expectations, colliding with their present in an unforeseen tumult. Detective Sarah Connors arrived at the scene, her partner by her side, the crime scene tape fluttering in the wind as the perimeter stood secure. Mrs. Mercer's voice trembled over the phone, recounting the discovery beneath their very living room floor. Connors wasted no time, instructing the forensic team to meticulously document every detail before further exploration. The camera flashes punctuated the darkness as the team descended the groaning wooden steps into the compact basement space. The walls, painted a somber gray, enclosed the eerie chamber. A solitary chair anchored to the floor, illuminated by the stark bulb casting dancing shadows across the room. But it was the row of photographs that captured their attention, chronological snapshots of the Mercer family's daily lives, meticulously arranged. "Almost a month's worth," remarked Connor's partner, scrutinizing the timestamps on the prints. "Here's Mrs. Mercer dozing on the couch, Mr. Mercer at the kitchen table, the children in their slumber. No signs of forced entry, no pilfered possessions, only an invasion of privacy and a shattering of security." Tracing the house's tumultuous ownership history, the investigation unraveled a web of deceit and concealment. The contractor who had overseen the renovations years before vehemently denied the existence of the basement, his pallor draining at the sight of the photographs. An unearthing of a memory card concealed in the light fixture revealed a trove of images capturing not only the Mercers, but a lineage of families that had once inhabited the home. The discovery of hidden audio recordings buried in the basement shed light on the extent of surveillance within the house. Sophisticated microphones had documented intimate conversations and mundane moments, painting a picture of a voyeuristic observer lurking within the walls. As the investigation delved deeper, a sinister truth emerged. Edward Kelvin, the elusive builder of the house, had never left. He had retreated into the labyrinth of hidden passages he orchestrated, watching, recording, and documenting the unsuspecting families with clinical detachment. Kelvin's apprehension from the confines of a crawl space unfolded a tale of delusion and possession. He saw himself as a custodian of the house, the family's mere players in his private drama. The families, including the Mercers, fled the property, leaving behind their possessions as remnants of their interrupted lives. The trial exposed the meticulous planning of Kelvin's surveillance network, revealing a house designed as a voyeuristic spectacle from its inception. The jury's verdict echoed through the empty rooms, casting a shadow over the shattered remnants of Kelvin's distorted reality. The house met its demise, its grounds upturned and erased. Yet for those who had dwelled within its deceptive walls, the specter of intrusion lingered. They found themselves casting wary glances at air vents, light fixtures, and shadowed corners, questioning their solitude in the aftermath of the revelations. The memories of whispered conversations and private moments, surreptitiously captured within the house's confines, haunted them still. The silence that enveloped the demolished property could not dispel the lingering sensation of unseen eyes and unheard whispers, reminding them of the chilling truth they had never been truly alone.